Hi, hello, and welcome to the latest edition of FFPC Insider Access here on the Better Sports Network. My name is Eric Balkman. You may know me from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the FFPC, and of course HSFF Hour Extra Reps. Bringing you tonight another treat. We're going to have another live Best Ball Tournament coverage. Last week we did Theo Greminger from RotoWire as he drafted one. Tonight, we're going to have an extra special treat for you for the second year in a row. This guy is coming back. I'm very excited to bring him on, which I will do shortly. As a reminder, I want you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, comment on it. That always helps us out. We really appreciate it. If you want to put any of the advice that we're giving tonight or any of the player evals that we're going to be giving to good use, no better use than the FFPC Big Gorilla. MyFFPC.com, $350 to enter, $1 million grand prize. The 7 Bananas promo is live as well. So if you keep getting randomly assigned that 7 pick multiple times in a row, we're going to keep throwing free FFPC teams at you. And don't forget, if you get it 5 times in a row, which we had one player come within 1 draft pick of doing last year, you'll get $50,000 or a Jungle Safari for 4, whichever you prefer. MyFFPC.com is where to go for that. That championship round pays down to 800th place. The runner-up in this tournament is getting $150,000 and the winner gets $1 million. Check that out, myffpc.com. I want to bring in tonight's guest co-host and sort of drafter. He will be the crash test dummy tonight as he goes for a $400,000 grand prize in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. He's no stranger to this show, quite frankly. He's no stranger to best ball tournaments in general. You know him, you love him, you follow him on X at Justin Herzig. You subscribe to his newsletter, at least I know I do, and you should be too. FFN60.com. He covers the best ball content for Establish the Run. And then just now, I shouldn't say just now, but very recently, Predict Q is out now as well, and he'll tell us all about it. This is his baby, and he joins us tonight. Please welcome onto the show, Mr. Justin Herzig. Justin, good evening, sir.
Eric, good evening to you as well. Appreciate the welcome, appreciate the invite, and pumped to be here and get another draft under our belts.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some fun tonight. To kick things off, so we know that all the content that you do for Establish the Run regarding best ball. We know your history being a very successful best ball player to the absolute pinnacle. What we don't know a whole lot about, and I'll get to FF and 60 in a second, but tell us more about Predict Q because I know this is something that you had been working on for a while, and now it's out, now it's available, now we can enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with the NFL season coming. There's, so many people that don't have access to sports books, or even if you do, there's just better opportunities in the prediction market space. And so what we've done is launch a site that helps people who are looking to find the best price, find where there's edge, find arbitrage opportunities for sports, for politics, for whatever it is across the prediction market gambit. But right now I'm mostly excited about the football side of things. We've been finding some, pretty sweet opportunities where you don't have to worry about cash outs. You don't have to worry about waiting for the entire time for your bet to actually finish because you can sell in the market. It's a whole new world, and we're happy to help people along that journey.
The FF and 60, I think, is great. And by the way, you probably noticed this in the show sheet tonight in this first half hour we do before the draft starts. The FF and 60, basically, I took different sections of that newsletter that you send out, and we'll be talking about it today. What I think is so great about FF and 60, and I know this is something that you said, boy, I wish like this is something that you wanted, and instead of waiting for somebody to do it, you just went out and did it. What's great about this, and I think we all subscribe to different fantasy content newsletters or whatever that brings us up to date. Some of them are really, really long, and some of them it takes forever to get through. Especially this time of year with how busy I am with drafts and FFPC stuff or whatever. It's so good that if I miss a day or if I fall behind, I literally can go to that email that you send out, and 1 or 2 minutes later, I'm basically caught up on everything. So there's nothing that slips through the cracks, and it only takes a minute or two. So thank you for that, but I'll let you expound on it a little bit more.
No, and you talk, honestly, I think my hand was forced a little. Had my first child about 1.5 years ago. And so I just didn't have the time to be serially online and paying attention to all of the camp news and beat reports and camp highlights and everything there. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out a way to, how can I digest this information in as quick, succinct as possible? So for me personally, I was like, I'm going to devote 1 hour. I'm going to create and that was when AI started coming out. So I started building out some agents to help me. How can I find the best information? Who has the best sites? Who has the best sources? And from there, my readers, and, for me personally, I was like, I wish I could just get this in 60 seconds. So that's the goal with the whole point. With the whole newsletter is each morning, get the most important fantasy insights in 60 seconds. I give my take on it. I curate it for what I think are the most important things that you should know about.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about it is it doesn't take a whole lot, and you basically it's not going to be all encompassing, but think about what you have to do for something like that. That takes a long time to catch up on every single thing that happened. What you do is you do the hard work for us, and you curate it down. So I'm getting 96, 97% in 2 minutes, which is great. Anyway, I'll stop waxing poetic on it and embarrassing you, but it is fantastic. FF60.com, sign up today. It is fantastic. Coming up on tonight's show, Justin and I will go around the NFL with a few of the stories that are popping up that are going to affect the way that you should be drafting, not only tonight, but going forward. And then coming up at the bottom of the hour here at 7:30, Justin is going to draft in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. I think you have pick 3 tonight, right, Justin?
That's correct. That's correct. And I'm a little iffy on pick 3 even right now, but we'll get into that.
Yes, we will, because I think it's going to be an interesting conversation for anybody who's picking at pick 3 this year. That draft may go a little bit past 9 o'clock tonight, but have no fear. I'm producing the show as well, viewers. So we will cover the draft in its entirety. I think with Theo last week, we got over with about 9:05, 9:06. So we will cover that. Without further ado, let's get into some of the news that you had pointed out to us this morning. Bashal Tutin is going to get a boost, at least temporary, maybe more than temporarily, getting a boost in his pass catching role because LaQuint Allen has a soft tissue injury and will be out for the rest of training camp, maybe the rest of preseason, maybe bleeding into the start of the season. We really don't know. But this Jacksonville backfield, Justin, I think for the course of the last several months, it has come up on regularly on one or multiple of my shows where no Etienne, but Tutin's there. Then they bring in Chris Rod and he's there now. And then you had the pass catching maven in LaQuint Allen there. So it was always tough to sort of get a handle on this. Now that we know that Allen is going to miss, how important is that to Tutin's development? And sort of how are you handicapping this right now? It seems like Tutin's not having the greatest of camps, but Rodriguez is starting to come on a little bit too. FFPC players are still drafting Tutin head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah. So I think for me personally, I believe the market's going to overreact a little to this and just drive Tutin's price up more, and kind of ignoring what you were talking about, like the Chris Rodriguez, that we've been hearing that momentum as well. So for the Bishop Tutin, yes, LaQuint Allen, I think he had about a dozen targets last year. So it's not like that's going to be a crazy amount more volume for Tutin. It will keep him on the field in more maybe third down and long opportunities, and maybe that can convert into more high value touches future. I think though the market's just saying okay, LaQuint Allen is the pass catching back. He's out. That means Tutin gets more. I want more Tutin. But I think what you mentioned is the Chris Rodriguez, he's the one that they've been saying. I mean, I'm expecting a near 50-50 kind of touches split to start the year. I think Chris Rodriguez is going to have the goal line work. Now, he's, a journeyman. He's not nearly as efficient. He doesn't have any near the explosiveness that Tutin has, and Tutin's upside is far, far higher. But I think coming out the gate, at least from medium projection, at value, I think I'd rather be taking Chris Rodriguez. And that's nothing against Tutin. It's just Tutin's price is so expensive. And if you look at the other running backs going around him, they just don't have the thorns and that kind of floor scenario that Tutin has.
Jacksonville running backs right now in the FFPC Big Gorilla over the last couple of days. Tutin is he's in the 5th round. He was in the 4th round earlier, but now on average 501, I think I'm seeing right now. 502 right now is where he's going. Running back 23. You have to go all the way down to round 11 to see Chris Rodriguez, running back 43 there. And then obviously LaQuint Allen, 19th round or sometimes undrafted as well. So that's what we're looking at right now with that Jacksonville backfield, which I think is going to be, we're not done yet. We're going to see some changes going on in ADP with those Jaguars here going forward. until the start of the season. Washington is another backfield that I think is pretty compelling. Jerome Ford, now on IR with a hamstring injury. He's out for the year unless the Commanders release him and he catches on somewhere else. Jeremy McNichols has a quad injury. That's going to knock him out the better part of a month, maybe even longer. Craig Reynolds, good old Craig Reynolds, still popping up right now in the NFL, which is great. He's now a Washington Commanders running back. However, I think the guys that this comes down to, the big three in this backfield still, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Rachaad White, and
Kaytron Allen.
Kaytron Allen, the rookie out of Penn State. Thank you, Justin. So Allen, I think I'm not really seeing a whole lot of steam with him lately. The guy who's really picked up is Krosky-Merritt. I've seen him move up boards quite a bit. And then Rachaad White, a player that, people were talking about potentially having a top 15 season less than 2 or 3 weeks ago, now is really falling out of favor with FFPC drafters. When you look at this Commanders backfield, and I know you're trying to mix in a lot of these guys, what is the idea with trying to get this decision right in our nation's capital, Justin?
Yeah, so early on in the offseason was hoping that we'd see a little more out of Kaytron Allen, that we get the buzz. This is a team that we know doesn't care that much about draft capital at the running back position. It's why JCM was able to, basically win the starting job last year, despite being that 7th-round rookie. And so I'm hoping, okay, maybe Kaytron Allen can do that same thing. I think he's a more complete back than the two guys ahead of him. That's JCM and Rachaad White. But that doesn't mean he does either of them well. And I think both JCM and Rachaad White do what they each do as part of that backfield better. And so my expectation is JCM is going to be our early down back. I think I'll pause there. I feel confident he'll be the early down back. I have confidence Rachaad White's going to have his pass catching skill set, despite how much we kind of crap all over him and his lack of efficiency. As a pass catcher, he's still pretty solid, above average for a running back. Now, the question is, who's going to get that goal line work? And between the two of them, it is kind of a crapshoot. I am leaning JCM, and it's why of the three in the backfield, he's the one that I kind of like best at price. But I don't know, there still is a world that Rachaad White takes that role. And if now Rachaad White has the pass catching and has more of that kind of red zone goal line work or 2-minute offense work, he becomes a little bit of a better value, especially on FFPC and PPR sites. So I think they're both fine picks. They're neither that. I mean, they both go in parts of the draft where I'm not actually usually looking for running backs because they're strong QBs to stack, well, depends on the site for tight ends, but definitely. And then it's also like a tier drop at where the wide receivers drop off. But I think they're both fine picks. I slowed down tremendously on the Kaytron Allen. It just didn't get the camp buzz that I'm looking for. I don't think he's done enough to really warrant taking a substantial part of that backfield without injury. And there's more, I'd say, higher upside running back bets in the end of drafts that I'm going after.
Krosky-Merritt, I know this would have been like a month or so ago. I know there's reports that the Commanders were trying to get his pass catching chops and his reps catching passes out of the backfield as part of his repertoire. And that, to me, is like something that would be huge for him, given that it's been non-existent for him. And then granted, he's only been in the league for 1 year, but that's all we have to go on. So if he was able to get that, then all of a sudden Rachaad White might take a clear backseat to them. That hasn't happened yet. They're basically going neck and neck, about a half round apart in the FFPC Big Gorilla. Krosky-Merritt at the end of the 10th round, White at the middle part of the 9th round right now, running back 37 and running back 38 respectively. That's what we're looking at from the Commanders there. Moving on, Justin, go ahead.
And on that JCM, he only had 7 receptions in his 2 years in college too. So that's not an expectation. Is this going to be a skills that he's developed? I agree with you. Those reports were very, optimistic, bullish, right. But that's literally what Rachaad White was brought in for. So yeah, I think you covered it well.
I want to talk about a player. This is so funny, Justin. It's actually not funny. It's awful. But Emeka Egbuka, I was noticing in the leagues I've been drafting, and I was noticing God, I hardly have any Egbuka this year. And this was right around the time he was sort of cresting up. There's a lot of hype for him. I got to start drafting more of him. So in back-to-back drafts, I get Egbuka, and I'm really pumped, to have him on my roster. And then less than 24 hours later, boom, toe, which stinks. I mean, it is what it is. But he had the Jets Bucks joint practice limp off. Essentially, he moved off the field with this toe injury. Todd Bowles says he's day to day. He was asked then about, is he going to be playing week 1? And Todd Bowles didn't say yes. He didn't say no on that. I don't know the latest on Egbuka, but what's interesting here is, again, the rise that we saw from him. And now it's petered out the last couple of days, but he's still going pretty high. Wide receiver 18. He had gone as high as the 305 back on Tuesday in the Big Gorilla. He has now fallen on average to the 403, slipping into the 5th round in a couple of drafts as well. When you look at Egbuka and knowing what we know about the Buccaneers offense, and Justin, I'll just be honest with you. I've been saying for months, I think there's going to be a big time positive regression for everybody in Tampa this year. That offense is being drafted at last year's prices, and I feel like just about everybody on Tampa is a player that you want to have pieces of, because I think they're being, way undervalued by drafters right now. So obviously that's how I feel about Egbuka as well. But this toe injury, that kind of throws a little bit of a monkey wrench into how we handle him in drafts.
Yeah, and I mean, let's start with the bull case scenario here. The Bucs have a top 5 offensive line. If you look at Brandon Thornton's rankings, he absolutely loves their offensive line. Baker Mayfield, if you watch the quarterback show on Netflix, we learned a little more about that injury that he played through last year. Looks pretty healthy this year. So now you've got good offensive line. You've got Baker, who's able to sling it a bit more. And now from an actual player personnel standpoint, you don't have Mike Evans out there. You've got Chris Godwin, which maybe he's able to take that slot role and kind of see the 2023 where he was a top 3 wide receiver before he got hurt. But more likely, you look at his efficiency last year and he's in decline. And so now it's what? Jalen McMillan and Ted Hurst. Like, Egbuka should just be that clear number 1 alpha that we saw in the first half of last season. But for the Bear case, but what happened to the second half of that season? And if he's only going to play outside, that does hurt you a little from a fantasy perspective. So then Godwin is eating up a little of those higher value, easier targets. And yeah, you brought in Kenneth Gainwell too. So maybe they go to a little more run heavy. Like, for me, it's not so much like that Egbuka is a bad pick, but I just don't understand his price when you're comparing him against the other guys in that area. The Ladd McConkeys, the Zay Flowers, the T. Higgins, the Garrett Wilsons. Like, those are all really solid wide receivers that we've seen multiple, I guess not Ladd McConkey, but others, we've seen multiple years of success of them. That gives us a little more confidence. There's just a wide range of kind of outcomes, a wider range of outcomes for Egbuka compared to definitely the Zay, the Garrett Wilson, the T. Higgins. And so it's just hard for me to be packing my bags when he's above those guys. You move him back a half a round and it's like, sure, but we have to be so price sensitive at best ball.
Yeah. And I look at it too. And by the way, I'll bring this up right now with, let's go to the FFPC Best Ball Tournament ADP, which we'll be dealing with the majority of the show tonight. In regards to Egbuka, you mentioned the guys that he was going around. Jalen Waddle's actually been creeping up by him as well. But if he were to fall a half round, then you get into the McMillan, DJ Moore burden territory. And I assume you'd be more willing to take him then at that point. What about Jalen Waddle versus Egbuka, though?
That's a tough one.
Or let me frame it this way, Justin. Just tell me your thoughts on Waddle, what you've read in training camp so far, now that he's a Denver Bronco, knowing what we saw from that offense last year with Bo Nix and Sean Payton, and now you incorporate this Waddle asset into it.
I'm still bullish on Waddle as a player and as the ability to be an alpha wide receiver for an offense. Where my concern more so comes in is the macro aspects of the Broncos and Bo Nix. I don't think Bo Nix is a particularly good quarterback, so I think there's some larger macro risk there specifically for the passing game. And I don't think they're going to throw nearly as much as him. Well, I think he led the league in pass attempts last year. And so if we get some regression there, if we bake in some risk with the Bo Nix, I think there's just such a wide range of outcomes that at that spot of drafts, I'm kind of looking for a little more comfort, a little more confidence in what I'm getting. But yeah, I mean, this could go like the history of the trades for number 1 wide receivers and what Denver gave up from a draft capital standpoint tells us that like he should be the alpha in that offense. If Cortland Sutton, declines as we're expecting, you're then talking about, I don't know, like Bryant, like there's not too much there. It could be very easy for Waddle to end up averaging 11, 12 targets a game in a bull case scenario here. But I don't know. It's not, I'm okay at price.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to think through, like on the draft, it probably honestly I'd go by ADP and try to mix in both Egbuka, but Egbuka's never been there where Waddle, like I always think Waddle is still available with Egbuka gone.
Yeah, no, that's true. I get it. And it makes sense. Let's keep this wide receiver conversation going here. Devonta Smith back on the field. This was something like I've drafted so much Smith over the course of these last several months. And so the last thing I wanted to see was him dealing with a hamstring injury. The last thing the Eagles wanted to see was both him and Lemon dealing with hamstring injuries. But Smith is back on the field. I think Lemon recently returned as well. But regarding Smith now, in sort of this number one role. And I can't remember who was talking about this. It might have been Scott Barrett, I think, from Fantasy Points, brought up that if you look at the numbers for the Eagles in games that A.J. Brown missed, Dallas Goedert actually was surprisingly almost the number one choice, the number one target, the leading receiver, the leading pass catcher in games that Brown missed. Now, I don't know if some of that has to do with, you don't know if Brown's going to play or not, so it's just easier to have the veteran and Goddard be the focal point and keep Devonta Smith in his normal number two role. I don't know. I don't know everything that goes into it. But I will say that with this Eagles passing offense, new offensive coordinator this year, it's got to be better, but we don't know for sure, in Sean Mannion. And now with no A.J. Brown and Lemon, sort of like, even if he's back on the field, he missed all this time as a rookie. I mean, that's significant stuff. I look at Devonta Smith as being this guy that now he's back on the field. He should shoot up draft boards, but I don't know how you've been handling him so far, Justin.
Yeah, and to that Dallas Goedert point, I think if you look at the stats of A.J. Brown off the field, Dallas Goedert's stats are right up there with the elite tight ends. And so he's been one of my favorite targets in drafts. Love pairing him up, especially with if you can get a Kittle too, because Goddard's early season schedule is extremely strong. And so if Kittle does come on slow, or now, come on slow, but also now Sam Laporta, Tucker Kraft, two other guys that we think might have kind of a slow start to the season, pairing him with someone like Goddard, I love. For the offense as a whole, Devonta Smith, I like drafting him because I want to get pieces of that offense, and I definitely want to be drafting Jalen Hurts. And so I think my favorite part about drafting Devonta Smith is it allows you to kind of be the front runner for the stack because no one else is really competing with you, especially now that Mekhi Lemon has fallen so far with the injury. So for me, I know that if I get Devonta, it also gives me a bit more of a roadmap of how this draft is going to play out because I'm going to take Hurts and what is that, like the 7th round or something? I can probably then get Goddard around pick, depending on where that is. I'm still trying to fix my head around the FFPC with the elite, with the tight end premium for where that goes. But so I like taking him. I'd say he's not it's tough when he's being drafted against the Chris Olaves and, right behind the Nico Collins, George Pickens, but I know, I think he still has strong upside.
Goddard, by the way, has moved up to tight end 12 in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. 803 is where he's going there. And I'll bring this up too. I know I talked about Smith's Big Gorilla ADP. Right now, we look at Devonta Smith in the FFPC main event, wide receiver 15 at the 308. So still below Collins, Olave, Rice, Flowers, those guys. But he's right up against them. There's not much wiggle room between him and those guys. So if he does move up anymore, then you'd be talking about him going there. By the way, the FFPC main event has 5 spots left in the 11:30 p.m. draft tonight. If you want to jump in that, after you buy your first team, it's $600 off each additional team. $1 million grand prize, championship round, pays down 200 places. MyFFPC.com is where to go for our flagship event, the main event. We're talking with Justin Herzig here, just minutes away from your Best Ball Tournament draft start. I will bring up Garrett Wilson here and talk about him. He was another guy that was missing some time. He's back on the field. And I would say that his offensive his offensive surroundings, teammates, it's much less rosy than what it is in Philadelphia. You can definitely get on board with the Eagles having an exciting offense this year. Outside of Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, I don't know how much there is to get excited about in New York. I will say, Justin, looking last year before Wilson got hurt, he was on pace, small sample size, granted, he was on pace for another really solid season. And I guess I don't see another reason why I don't see a reason why he would not have another great year this year. It seems weird to draft the Jets receiver that high with Geno Smith throwing to him, but he has not let us down before. And maybe this will be a nice little bounce back for Wilson. Maybe it's even a better quarterback situation with Geno Smith there in 2026.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson is one of my favorite wide receivers that you can draft right now. If you look at his per game stats from last year, next gen stats, like he was leading in multiple categories. He was just I was trying to pull up to see what those were. But yeah, he was absolutely dominant in that small sample size last year. He has just suffered from poor QB play, other than maybe a year with Rodgers, and even that wasn't like great Rodgers. I mean, the time with Rodgers, even that wasn't the great Rodgers. So for me, when you look at just from a skill set, when you look at what's happened the rest of the offseason for the Jets, okay, well, Kenyon Sadiq may not even be playing above Mason Taylor. Omar Cooper Jr. is barely even going to see the field. Like, everything is just played for Garrett Wilson just to lead maybe even the league in targets this year. So that's where I think, yeah, just from a volume, from the talent, and Geno Smith in my mind is at least good enough. And yeah, if Geno Smith gets benched, okay, like, does it really matter that much? You're still going to have, the competency of the QB play cannot go down that much. So this in my mind is just hey, tightly targeted, concentrated tree, high volume play. I like it.
The last thing I want to bring up before we take a quick break and then we get the draft started, Jeremiah Love versus Alec Pierce. Which injury and situation, which I should say, not situation, which injury concerns you more for fantasy, given the draft capital that you have to get involved to get Jeremiah Love on your team and the draft capital that you have to get Pierce on your team?
Yeah, I mean, Steichen just said, I think it's just acclimating to the pads and stuff and getting back with the bodies around him, but he did. He looked great yesterday in the indoor. So like I said, he'll be back. So, I think Steichen is saying, like, we should see Alec Pierce back week 1. Now, whether we can trust that, I don't know. So I've been starting to scoop him a little as he has been dropping. For me, was the other one you said, Jeremiah Love, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, that's a type of injury that I think could actually linger a little more into the season. Plus, we already have a Cardinals team who has talked about Tyler Algier, and maybe this just gives him more of an excuse to kind of slowly ramp him back off that injury. So for me, I'm drafting more Pierce as he's fallen. Jeremiah Love, I think I need to see him start falling a little more into that kind of that 4th or so round. But yeah, mostly, let's see. Take a look at his ADP right now. It's still 28.3, so he's still got a ways to go on FFPC.
Yeah, he is sort of like a mid, kind of towards the end of the third, 308, whatever that is, like mid to late. Running back 15, falling behind both Breece Hall and Kyron Williams right now in regards to Love. And then Alec, by the way, Best Ball Tournament ADP. I want to make sure that's clear on that. Alec Pierce in that same format right now, you're looking at investing 1106 into getting him. He is right next to Golden, Lemon, and now Tyson, who's been falling quite a bit. We might get into Jordan Tyson after the break here. Let's take a quick break, Justin. When we come back, we will set the stage, let you know what's going on with Justin's Best Ball Tournament draft with the FFPC tonight. I'll give you the names of the other 11 players competing against him as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be here for the duration. Justin's picking 3rd. So we will have a pick pretty quick. And definitely let us know in the chat who you think Justin should be taking there. It all happens next on FFPC Insider Access. Don't go anywhere.
Season. A main event team on FFPC $2,000 entry team. Grand prize of $1 million.
I'm looking for that $1 million top prize.
Main event season is in full swing.
And it is time for Justin Herzig to see if he can win the $400,000 in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. Off and running here on FFPC Insider Access. The first pick tonight, I screwed up the draft order on my sheet. That's okay. I can see it right now. We have Bill Wonke's Mayer is dead to me. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 1. The Giant Step team takes Bijan Robinson. I don't know who that is. I'll have to do some research to find out who that is because they changed their team name. Justin, your pick number 3. This probably is what you were assuming you were facing. Gibbs and Robinson off the board. Tell us what you're thinking here at 103.
Yeah, I would have loved to grab one of those 2 running backs, especially in this format. So for me, it comes down to between Jamar and Puka. If there wasn't an idiot tax that I just can't ignore, I would go Puka. But I think you just got to bake in, like, there's still a tiny suspension risk. There's something, he does something in the offs, during the season, gets kicked out of a game. Who knows? Like, I got to call some kind of idiot tax here enough to break the tie. So I'm going to go Jamar Chase.
Chase is the pick over Nacua, and I'm kind of curious. Let's say that Nacua had a normal offseason. Let's say there was no suspension. Let's say maybe even the Rams locked him up long-term heading into this season. Why would Nacua be the choice for you over Chase in that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, he's got the kingmaker as his quarterback. Doesn't matter how good of an actual quarterback Joe Burrow is. Matthew Stafford just absolutely feeds him. And I think this Rams offense, you've got the indoors aspect. I think it's probably going to be a top 2, top 3 scoring offense in the game. And yeah, I mean, you just look at his stats. They're insane on a per game basis because he did miss one game last year with the injury. Otherwise, like, I don't want to say blew JSN out of the water, but he had better stats than JSN last year. Should have had Offensive Player of the Year if he didn't have that injury. And yeah, it's splitting hairs between the 2, but I just think that Puka is the better pick.
I want to let everybody know that this is a tournament that you too can be drafting in if you want at myffpc.com. As I said, a $400,000 grand prize in this format. It's $100,000 more for first place than what we did last year. The payouts in general are deeper this year. It's only going to set you back $125 to join. And you don't have to manage this roster, which is probably the best part about it this time of year. You just set it and forget it and take your shot at a $400K grand prize. So Justin takes Jamar Chase there. Right after that, we see let's see, who was it? Oh, Manuel Afif Chabot taking Puka Nacua. And then inside, that is, I believe, Strider Robbins. Yeah, Strider Robbins takes Brock Bowers at the 105. It's weird, Justin. I've seen Bowers not only in the best ball tournament, the big gorilla in the main event. I've seen him sometimes slipping to the end of the first round. Tight end premium format, I would think everybody is falling all over themselves to try to draft Brock Bowers. How have you been treating him so far in drafts this year? Are you excited, or are you also cognizant of the potential red flags that might be on this Raiders offense?
Yeah, I think he's just going to be the entire offense. So even if there are red flags that kind of protrude from the Raiders, he's, as long as he stays healthy, like, he's going to absolutely feast. So for me, and like if it's a half PPR, no tight end premium format, I usually just don't like going elite tight ends, and maybe that's where I'm fading him. But every other site where it's either PPR or tight end premium, yeah, he's a priority.
To you, how much did you consider him at all over Chase or Nacua at 3?
I didn't. I think those 2 wide receivers, like, I think 5s are definitely a fair choice right here. But for me, Jamar Chase and Puka are just a tier above from like a game breaking standpoint.
Jackson Smith and Jigba goes off the board at 106. Sonics Forever, that's Colin Baxter, drafting him there. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown falls to the 111 to Brian Lewis's squad. That's LFG4. There has been a conversation the last couple of weeks, Justin, Smith and Jigba versus St. Brown. Where do you fall in on that conversation? If you only had one draft, which one were you more likely to pick first?
Yeah, I mean, I think Amon-Ra is the double condom play, as they say. Like, yes, he's finished top 3 wide receiver, what was the past 2-3 years. But we also, like, he doesn't have that season break. Okay, this is silly to say. He's less likely to have that season-breaking upside than what we literally just saw JSN last year. So, yes, I understand there are the risks with maybe a little bit of a new system in Seattle with the JSN. But for me, like, we literally just saw him do it last year. I Still have him, less than that Puka and Jamar Chase because of those reasons, but I think he's still a tier above the Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, Jefferson, those groups.
The defending FFPC main event champs and $1 million winners from last year, Justin, are in the 7th spot tonight. That's Rob Sarro and Nick Namaker. They end up going with Christian McCaffrey. I don't know what it is, man. I think he's like the opposite of the double condom pick of St. Brown, right? Like, you're really throwing caution to the wind. But I do know that you are a fan of McCaffrey this year. You have him as, I believe, your number 3 running back. Tell us a little bit about, I mean, I know you know the risks of it, but why do you think the reward outweighs the risks of McCaffrey in 2026?
Yeah, so I will say the past week or two has definitely caused me a little concern. This, has remnants of 2023 with the coaching staff saying it's no big deal, but that's exactly what they were said last time. And then next thing you know, he basically missed the whole season. So I am my worry is going up a little, but we got to keep paying attention. And even just, past 2 days, they came out and said hey, this isn't a contract hold-in, and if he was, if there was a game this weekend, then we'd be playing. So I'm holding off. If we ignore this past week, am I concerned about the high volume of touches last year and the fake statistic around if you have 360 touches, whatever it is, you're going to get hurt? What really just happens is running backs who have a lot of volume end up getting hurt often. And that is just likely. And that's the same thing with Gibbs, and it's the same thing with Bijan, and it's more projecting forward. And so I'm not going to say, I'm not going to draft him because of that injury risk, substation, all of that. For me, the bigger concerns for McCaffrey are he's an aging running back that has become a little less efficient, and that's just not great for a first-round pick. But he still is getting the highest, the highest value touches basically out of any offense, 100 plus targets, 100 plus. Was it 100 plus receptions or 100 plus targets? But absolute insane, obviously receiving volume, goal line work, red zone, all of that. So I still think he's a really solid pick. And I'm just not letting the fear of, he had so many touches last year, it's going to, get him hurt this year. If he gets hurt, that's not why. It's because of the amount of volume that he's having going forward, and just football sucks.
I think, well, that's the point, right? I think you could make the case that anybody who's being drafted in the first round at the running back position, it's because they're expected to get a high volume. And if you are expected to get a high volume, your injury risk is probably pretty high when it comes to the way the game's played and the way that these guys play their position. So that's McCaffrey to me is I'm looking elsewhere, but I do have a couple of shares of FOMO picks for sure for me. I don't want to miss out on another banner year for McCaffrey. You are on deck right now, my friend. Manuel Afif Chabot is looking to pair Puka Nacua with his selection at the 209, and then you're up at the 210, which he takes Derrick Henry. Justin, you're now on the clock after taking Jamar Chase in the first round. Let the viewers know what you're thinking now.
Oh, would have really liked Derrick Henry. He's one of my favorite second-round picks this year. I think it's a bit of a reach for me to grab one of the running backs, so we're gonna go with another. I think Drake London. I like Drake London a little more than AJ Brown. I am a little concerned with how bad Tua's looked, but there's also a report just tonight that Michael Penix, let me see, what was it? Is talking to his doctor today, hoping to be cleared. So maybe that actually would be a benefit. I think I'm still going to go with the Drake London.
London is the play there. That is a lot of targets you have accumulated in your first 2 rounds here tonight with Jamar Chase and Drake London. Justin Herzig, one of only 2 players in this draft to start off receiver. AJ Brown quickly as Peter goes right after Peter Masterson, rushing the card up to the podium. Very excited about to get AJ Brown there. As now we are sitting waiting for Bill Wonky to make his choice, which he does. Chris Olave is the choice there from Team 1 tonight. And then he goes Nico Collins, who we'll talk about in a little bit after we need to break down this Jaden Higgins thing. You're on deck once again. Masterson waiting to make his we're waiting for Masterson to make his 302 pick, and then you're on board again. Certainly with the way that the best ball tournament is structured, you could start as many as 4 receivers on any given week. This is optimized scoring, so obviously you won't be setting lineups for this, just to make sure that we're all clear on that. But certainly a receiver here is a possibility. You mentioned last round, Justin, as you're on the clock now, was a little bit too early for any of the running backs. Would you look at that position here, or perhaps maybe a tight end?
Yeah, I think at this point I'd grab Breece Hall. Not too concerned about this injury lingering. And in this format, only needed to start 2 wide receivers. Yes, you can obviously grab keep going with wide receiver, but don't want to get too left out. If I'm looking at how the rest of the draft kind of went, makes sense for me to kind of take Breece Hall, even though there were a couple wide receivers that I still really like.
We had, if we go back to the second round, I just want to pick your brain on this. Ken Orovitz, a longtime FFPC player, ends up taking Colston Loveland 1 pick before Adam Hahn, who's in the YouTube chat right now, who's drafting in the 9 spot. He takes Loveland over McBride. Where do you stand in on those 2 tight ends after Bowers is gone this year? Would you rather have Loveland over McBride, or is it still McBride over Loveland for you? Because I've seen this done multiple times now in the FFPC where Loveland goes ahead of McBride.
Yeah, I mean, he's in good company. Evan Silva also has Colston Loveland ahead of Trey McBride. For me personally, I think that's a little rich. I think you're telling yourself a story of you're extrapolating off of the half of the season on Loveland, which, hey, from an upside standpoint, it's definitely possible. I'd rather, we've seen it multiple years now out of Trey McBride. And so there's just a little more confidence. The other is, tight end is so heavily dictated by how that offense ends up using you. And with Colston Loveland, he has the skill set to be the focal part of that offense, but they also have Luther Burden, Romo Dunze, strong wide receivers that on a game-by-game basis could also be the focal part of your offense. Maybe they play to the weakness of the opponent. And so that's my concern, where for Brock Bowers, for Trey McBride, we know how that offense is going to run. Like, they're each going to be the number 1 option for that offense. So if you tell me that like Colston Loveland is going to have, a better year than Trey McBride, I think, yeah, it's definitely possible. But I think the more likely outcome and that median is that Trey McBride just a better pick.
Using that same logic with tight ends being the focal point of the offense, what do you make about the guy that Colin Baxter just took here at the 306, Tyler Warren, a player who I think it was reported he's going to miss about a week with that groin issue that he had yesterday. But Alec Pierce, I mean, we talked about him in the first segment. This is a player that we're still waiting to get back on the field. Obviously, no more Michael Pittman. They've signed Keenan Allen. They have Josh Downs. And I would make the case that the only guy that the Colts could potentially have on that offense that would be the primary guy that they'd run the offense through would be Pierce. To me, I think Warren is the smarter choice there. So using that same logic with being the number 1, running the offense through that player, Warren is justifiably rising right now in your eyes, right?
A week ago, I was very bullish on Warren and was taking him, just in a ton of drafts. Like, I think the Daniel Jones injury recovery is going pretty strong. There's been some good murmurs that the offense is going to run through Tyler Warren. And so for me, I was like, I can see him elevating. Because again, remember, like, he got drafted before Colston Loveland. He's not as good from a skill set of the receiver as Colston Loveland, but like from an overall tight end standpoint, and he's definitely good enough, like that offense could run through him. However, you look at the last week, the injury, I don't love that. The signing of Keenan Allen, I don't love that. And so now the more I look at this offense, I think it's probably going to play more of we're going to just spread it out. Like, Keenan Allen, despite his age, despite his lack of efficiency, like, one thing he does well is he earns targets. And so every target he earns is 1 fewer that can be spread around or running through Tyler Warren. So I'm not saying like Keenan Allen is the death knell for him, but when you combine the injury, when you combine that signing, as we talked about earlier, like, I think the Pierce stuff is looking a little better with the health standpoint. I think Tyler Warren's still fine, but I liked him a lot more last week. I've slowed down a bit.
And I get why you would have done that for sure. The Keenan Allen thing is so funny because he was going from like not even drafted or like 18th, 19th round pick, and now we see people taking him in like the 11th or 12th round, which is I don't know. It makes sense, but it still boggles my mind when I actually see it. I want to point out the pick that Adam Hahn just made at 309, DeAndre Swift. Now, Adam is a noted Bears fan, and he is also a noted Bears fan for fantasy this season. Maybe the only guy higher on the Bears offense this year than Adam is Ben Johnson. DeAndre Swift is the choice here at the 309. This is about almost a full round ahead of where he normally goes. But when you consider the Monangai injury, that he's going to be missing time, and we know what Swift has been able to do the last 3 or 4 years, been really consistent. The benchmarks that he has hit for fantasy purposes. Maybe Swift was always being undervalued at the 407. How high would you be bumping him up in the best ball tournament right now? He goes at 309 tonight, Justin. Too rich for your blood, or does that make sense based on what's going on in Chicago at the moment?
I do like Swift. He is one of my higher owned drafted running backs. The Monangai injury definitely helps him as well. I think he benefits from just this next level we expect the Bears offense to go. For me, though, it's always about price, and I can't say you can't take him ahead of Kyren Williams. Even if you expect that Blake Corum is going to play into the Kyren Williams role, the numbers for that, how powerful that offense is, if you look what he's done every single year he's been in the league, like, it's just another level. Like, a great year for DeAndre Swift would be what our expectations are for Kyren Williams. And so for me, like, I like being bullish on Swift, but I mean, I think you probably could have gone Kyren and then Swift with the next one.
Adam definitely does not like Kyren Williams. I can tell you that. and it's his draft too, so he's going to do what he wants. But I appreciate the insight on that for all of us looking at that. The one team tonight, Justin, that has gone running back was Jimmy John at the 8th spot tonight. James Cook, Kenneth Walker, Javonte Williams. In this format, how crucial is it to have? I mean, he's got 3 top 15 running backs on his squad right here. How crucial is that? Certainly, this is a strategy that you could probably get behind. I just don't know how often you would do something like that.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, I think this year more than any other year, taking running backs early and taking even 3-4 of them is perfectly fine. The drop off is pretty strong. There just aren't nearly as many of these exciting mid-late round running backs, and the depth of the wide receiver position is pretty strong this year. When you can grab these, I don't know, like exciting players in the 160s, 170s that you can tell yourself a story, have some upside. It's a lot easier this year to make up for quality with quantity at the wide receiver position than at the running back. And also you got to play for where you stand with the draft. I could have seen going Amon-Ra instead of James Cook, but like taking Kenneth Walker there is great. Taking Javonte there, I'm on board with. So yeah.
Let's talk about Kenneth Walker because I've seen him go fairly high. I shouldn't say fairly high. I've seen him go really high in a handful of drafts. Sometimes even in the mid first, I've seen some people take him up there. But he seems to be rising up boards right now, and I would assume that everybody is doing that because of A, his talent, B, the season he had last year, and then C, the fact that Mahomes is coming off this ACL and that they probably are going to be running the ball a little bit more this year. It sounds like you are definitely behind the rise of Kenneth Walker, and you would support that.
I do like Kenneth Walker. He's in an area of the draft where there's probably 5 running backs that you are really splitting hairs with the arguments between them. For me personally, I think Kenneth Walker has some of the highest upside of the running back position. I have some offensive player of the year tickets on him. That's where I can tell myself a story that if the Chiefs go to a bit more run heavy in the red zone, he could lead the league in touchdowns. If they're, willing to, hey, you've got a defense that's worrying they're playing too high, they're worried more about, Patrick Mahomes beating him over the top, then Kenneth Walker just runs wild underneath. I get all these. We still need to figure out, is Emmett Johnson, do they want more of a pass catching back? And Kenneth Walker hasn't had that skill set in the past. So there's some risk there, but hey, there's also risk with Omarion Hampton, with Saquon, with Genty and the team, with Achane and the team. So all of those guys have crazy upside, but also some risk there. Speaking of risk.
Yeah, you're on the clock right now. Chase London Hall. Speaking of risk, how risky is this pick going to be at 410 for you, Justin?
Let's just hope we don't get suspended. But hey, every day that we get closer, Josh Jacobs, if you told me he wasn't getting suspended, he should be going at least a round earlier. And we already had all those defensive players suspended. Every day that we get closer to the league happening, I've been playing this as long as there's not new video footage or new pictures that come out, Goodell is more than happy. It's not so much sweeping this under the rug, but more kicking the can down the road. Let the courts play out when his hand is not forced. And so I think Josh Jacobs' situation, the way that it's looking now, is most likely won't have a suspension this year. Whatever happens in the court cases, it'll feed into the reaction for Goodell and next season. I don't know. I'm not too concerned about Marshawn Lloyd. with Marshawn Lloyd and the hamstring injuries, I can't expect like they're going to give him a ton of work. They want to keep him healthy in case Jacobs is known as being that guy that can just be a workhorse. So I like him a lot.
They also like Chris Brooks. The Packers like Chris Brooks quite a bit as well. So that's going to work in I think that takes more away from Lloyd than it does Jacobs. Although there were a couple of times last year when they were in a 2-minute drill and Brooks was out there over Jacobs. But listen, that already happened and Jacobs was still awesome. So I have more to say on this. If we have time, I'll get into it. We may not. You're on deck here. What I like about your team so far, Justin, and I say this all the time we do a live draft, when you have the balance where you can go anywhere when the value falls to you, having a balanced team allows you to do that. And you can do that here at the 503. I'm not sure if you see any screaming values out there right now, but it doesn't matter if it's at quarterback, tight end, receiver, running back. You definitely have the bandwidth to handle whatever position that is, as you will be on the clock here right now. Trevion Henderson off the board to Peter Masterson. Chase, London, Hall, Jacobs. Who's joining that squad, Justin?
I thought I was going to be able to get a running back, but when 4 straight running backs go in between, got to adapt. So let's go back to the wide receiver position because there are still some very exciting players here. Luther Burden, I don't think this injury should be too concerning. All reports look like he'll still be able to play week 1. And yeah, give me some explosiveness there. Give me some youth. I like Devontae, I like Jameson too. I'm looking through, but I think Luther Burden's the play.
The selection of Burden here is going to make your colleague at Establish a Run, Evan Sullivan, very proud. He is definitely in touch with what's going on with the Bears. And I don't think he's a Bears fan, is he, Justin?
Oh, yeah.
He is?
He
seems more grounded than a lot of the Bears fans I've met. No offense, Adam Hahn.
He's a Cubs fan more than anything else.
Yeah.
So he still, dies Chicago sports. I think all of us at ETR and most of the people in the industry, like you're just so in the weeds that it's hard to have like that true fandom aspect. But I think he likes good players. He likes good coaching. He really likes what Ben Johnson is doing. And so at least this year, I think he's a pretty strong fan.
Yeah, and Burden too is and I was listening to him talk about this on one of the ETR podcasts, and he said he thinks this is purely a case of knowing how important Burden is to this offense, and they're going to handle him with kid gloves because there's no point in rushing him at this point and getting him back out there. So while it seems daunting that he is going to miss this time, he was already running and walking around looking really good. So the Burden thing the injury doesn't concern me much either in that regard. So Burden joins your team with Chase, London in split out wide with Hall and Jacobs in the backfield. The other thing I'm just going to say about Jacobs, and I'll wrap this up because people are probably sick of me talking about this, but Bill Huber, who covers the Packers for Sports Illustrated, said, I think about 3 or 4 weeks later, after the Jacobs thing happened, which was, by the way, back in May. So we're coming up on 3 months and this dude has still not been charged. He said this was when the Terry and Arnold stuff was going on with Detroit, and the Detroit publicly said that they back Arnold. And then the charges came out, and not only did the Lions say, whoa, I don't know if we're backing him anymore, they just outright cut him. And at the same time, this Jacob stuff is going on. He gets charged, and Justin, 2 days later, he's back out there for OTAs. They let him back on the field. And Huber said, it's I don't think, and he probably knows more what's going on that he can't say. But he's like, it's hard for me to believe that if this was serious, stuff that's going on with Jacobs, it's hard for him to think that the Packers would just let him back on the field. And not only was he practicing, they did nothing. At the backfield. They did not go out and sign anybody. They didn't trade for anybody. So I'm with you. The longer this goes on, the more confident I am that this Jacobs thing, if it turns into anything, is going to be a 2027 thing. And oh, by the way, the Packers can get out of his contract really easy after this year as well. So they may not even have to deal with it next year. 2026 makes perfect sense. Good buy for you in the 4th round. We move forward here. The defending FFPC main event champions in the 5th round, Harold Fannin as their number 1 tight end. That is Saro and Namaker taking him at the 507, 5th tight end off the board. Seems like he's been falling a little bit lately, Justin, and I don't know if that's because people are becoming more bullish on Concepcion. We've had glowing reports coming out about Denzel Boston the last couple of weeks as well. Does Fannin still strike you as the guy that's going to be driving this Browns offense this year? Or is this more going to be kind of split up with Concepcion and Boston and obviously Quinshon Judkins, who also went in the 5th round, working their way in as well?
Yeah, I mean, we have to keep a Bayesian approach as we're drafting throughout the summer and adapting to new information. And so when we went into this year, we knew, okay, you've got Casey Concepcion late 1st, Denzel Boston early 2nd. Okay, so we've got 2 young wide receivers. We also have Jerry Jeudy, who came off literally like the least efficient season we've ever seen out of a wide receiver last year. Yeah, Harold Fannin makes sense to be the absolute alpha and primary pass catcher of this offense. But as we get these positive reports, compare it to the Jets. Omar Cooper, also a 1st round, but think about the negative there. Like what we're seeing with Casey Concepcion, what we're hearing about Denzel Boston, like it is all positive. And so I think like that's a good thing for this offense, but it's not like they're really going to propel this into a high scoring offense given the QB situation, but they will earn targets. So it does give me a little concern with the Fannin from where we were drafting him, I'd say a month or so ago. But he also is, unworldly talent, what we saw out of college, rookie year, took no time to get rolling. So my only hope there, if you have Harold Fannin, is you better be cheering that Deshaun Watson gets benched as soon as possible. I think if we can see Shador, I think that'll overall be a plus for the Harold Fannin bags.
We are through 5 rounds here, and it's time for my PSA about how drafters are treating quarterbacks. The signal callers, the guys that make the most money in the NFL, continue to get mistreated in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. And if you are with me and you think that quarterbacks deserve their due, only 1 quarterback off the board in the first 5 rounds, unacceptable. Then go join the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament, the largest Superflex Best Ball Tournament of its kind out there. At this point in the Superflex Best Ball Tournament with the FFPC, we'd have 20-plus quarterbacks off the board. They get their just due there. The Superflex FFPC Best Ball Tournament respects the signal caller position. Join it now for just $35. You can win $100,000. That's the grand prize there. myffpc.com is where to go for that. That's myffpc.com. Support quarterbacks now and join the Superflex Best Ball Tournament. I say that tongue-in-cheek because I'd be doing the same thing here. Dave Gerzak, the co-founder of the FFPC, said many years ago when we were doing the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour together, he said in single quarterback formats, Justin, he likes to wait on a quarterback to the point of being a dick about it. And I think we see that a lot this year, and we're seeing it tonight. Quarterbacks continue to fall. You talked about the wide receiver depth this year, but my God, the quarterback depth is really, really good too.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though, because it's strong depth, but then it drops off so quickly. And so you're seeing the, I don't want to say elite because Josh Allen still has, going probably where he normally would. But after that, everyone's fallen a bit. And then you've got this really strong patch of QBs in that 9th, 10th round, or, really 7th to 10th. But then if you miss out, you can really miss out this year. And you do not want to get stuck with the Bryce Youngs, the Cam Wards, the Aaron Rodgers. So I think it's a delicate balance this year.
The selection, not that I want to keep talking about tight ends here, but I'll bring up Sam Laporta because of the injury that he's dealing with right now. He did not practice yesterday, and Dan Campbell said today that he's dealing with a hip injury. Campbell says he doesn't think it's a long-term thing and that he could be ready for the start of the season, but Campbell also said he wasn't sure. And he's coming off this back injury, which I think he's come off the back injury really good. I mean, they had him working out in training camp, mini camp, OTAs. He was doing everything here. But when it comes to Laporta right now, how far are you dropping him knowing that this hip injury is a little bit nebulous?
I mean, kind of from projection standpoint, you drop about a game or two. And then I did see a positive report that because it was more of a contusion or basically a hit to that area, that it shouldn't be as severe as if this happened otherwise. I'm, not a doctor or anything, but just trying to interpret it to my knowledge. So if that is true, then maybe we shouldn't be concerned. And Laporta, we should still be drafting as we are. We'll see. I'm hoping that I can get a tight end with my next pick, but
looks like you can. Jaylen Warren off the board here with the 609. That was to Manuel Afif Chabot. He takes Warren to join Derrick Henry and Quinshon Judkins in his backfield. And you go with the always polarizing Kyle Pitts. If there's one thing I've learned living in America the last 20 years, I mean, I've lived in America my whole life, but especially in the last 20 years, everybody's got an opinion about politics, and everybody's got an opinion about Kyle Pitts. And I don't know which one's stronger. You take Pitts here. I am on board with Kyle Pitts. I know Evan Silva is a big fan of Kyle Pitts this year as well. Tell us a little bit about why you were happy to grab him at the 6'10" tonight.
Well, just like politics, the past 10 years, people have been switching sides with Kyle Pitts. The past 2 or 3 years, people should be switching sides, because the Kyle Pitts and the people who were on him 2-3 years ago, when it was more of just prognosticating on what we want Kyle Pitts to become after that rookie year and the great college at UF, we just didn't see it. And was it the lack of development? Was it the coaching, not using the correct way? We're not really sure. But when we look at last year, yes, I want to say his most success came when Drake London was out and he played more of that Drake London role. But they didn't bring in, Zachariah Branch isn't going to be a number 2 wide, can't be your true number 2 wide receiver. He can be a great gadget, great, I don't know what
they scheme him up. Whatever.
Yeah. But we still need a number 2 pass catcher in this offense. And for me, Kyle Pitts, when I'm already taking Drake London, so I'm making a bet on this offense, love bringing Kyle Pitts. Whether or not I end up drafting 2 or Penix, I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I think you can still get that correlation across the season. And from I saw over here the value pits. I think Harold Fannin, Kyle Pitts are neck and neck. I think the Laporta and Tucker Kraft with their injuries are right there as well. So I think all 4 of those tight ends you could go in any order. So to get Kyle Pitts as late as that, I'm very happy with.
FFPC Best Ball Tournament ADP over the last couple of days puts him at the 603. Kyle Pitts, the latest he's gone has been the 703. People have still taken him at the 404, so he's still all over the place. It only takes one, and it took one Justin Herzig to take him tonight at the 6'10". You are on deck again here after Kittle goes 1 pick after Pitts. We see Team 1, Bill Wonky, going with Marvin Harrison and Jaden Daniels. We are on the edge of our seats here, seeing what Peter Masterson is going to do in the next 20 seconds with his pick, as he also has a pretty balanced squad, 3 running backs, 2 receivers, and a tight end. He could go any which way. You're on deck right now, Justin. Is there a position you're looking at right now, or a couple of players that you have in mind?
Yeah, there's one player, and I hope it'll be and that was it to complete the stack. Would have loved that Joe Burrow there. I'm sure he would have loved the Drake May that went earlier. I'm that's tough. That's tough. Okay.
Yeah, which is interesting. He couldn't get May. He could have waited. He still might wait around and get Dart. I don't know if he'll do that the way quarterbacks are falling. But certainly the Burrow thing. Listen, even Justin Herzig gets sniped. The world's greatest best ball fantasy football player still gets sniped. This is how he reacts to it right now. 30 seconds on the clock.
Yeah, so I'll just talk through. There's a couple running backs here that I really like. Rico Dowdle, Tony Pollard. I'm happy with all of those. Or do I grab a QB?
5 quarterbacks off the board right now.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna draft Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts it is at the buzzer, and continuing this mini quarterback run that we're seeing in the 7th round. Daniels to Wonky, Burrow to Masterson, and now Hurts to Herzig. Certainly, there's a player, I won't mention him now, but there's a player we talked about in the first segment that might find his way onto your roster here. I don't know if it happens. I don't know if you'll want it to happen. You might be looking at some other spots, players there as well. But the Hurts pick at the 703, who else were you considering there? Were there other quarterbacks, or were there? You mentioned Dowdle. You mentioned who was the other running back you mentioned?
Tony Pollard.
Pollard was the other guy. Was it just basically those 3 that you were deciding on?
Also was considering the Caleb because I had the Luther Burden to go with the stack there. For me, and I've written about this in the FFN 60 previously, I think I called it the AJB effect because it was talking about the move for Drake May and AJ Brown's ADPs kind of collapsing together in line with best ball draft boards. And with Caleb Williams, you just see him being overdrafted as your Chicago Bears, your Luther, your Rome, your Colson Loveland are all fighting for him. So no expectation that Caleb would make it back to me, but I think I just have Jalen Hurts like a decent tier ahead. And there's still some backstacking options with Mekhi Lemon or Dallas Goedert that might fall, that I'm still okay with it. And then besides that, it was, the running back, specifically that Rico and Tony Pollard. I'm okay with Breece Hall and Josh Jacobs, but I do think this next round of running backs, there's a teardrop. And so I still don't know if the Jalen Hurts was the right pick or not. The Joe Burrow would have just been the easy, correct pick with the Ja'Marr Chase stack.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you have to be able to pivot. One of those things. I just noticed too. Well, I don't think you'll mind me sharing this, but you have London, you have Pitts on this team, and I wonder if you would explore the back stack with the quarterback there, despite not knowing who it's going to be for the entire season. I know the importance of stacking, but I also understand the importance of not taking zeros at the quarterback position too.
Yep, both those are very true. For me, with a team like the Jets, like the Cardinals, like the Falcons, you can still gain correlation value by taking multiple pass catchers in that offense, even if you don't have that QB. The idea mantra being that we believe that Atlanta is going to outperform their expectations and be a more pass-heavy team. You're playing in the NFC South. You're playing in a dome. You're going to have more shootouts. Tua or exceeds expectations, or more likely, they end up going to Penix and Penix does. And so you're still winning by taking both players, but that doesn't mean that you have to get the QB, because let's say Tua and Penix each play about 7-8 games, and you get enough competency out of them. Maybe one of them, the second one, Penix, is substantially better. That doesn't mean that Penix was still a good pick for your stack. I'll consider Penix. Nobody else is going to be taking him. So maybe in the 20th round, if I don't like anyone else, I throw in a Penix. Or Tua.
Or Tagovailoa, absolutely. The pick I want to talk about, Colin Baxter took him at the 607. Jonathan Brooks, who has an ADP of 606, so he got him basically at price. How have you been handling the Brooks tidal wave ever since the Hubbard injury? Are you riding it, or are you letting it pass you by and wash over other drafters? Because I think it's fascinating to see how people are handling a guy who basically has played no meaningful football in 2 years, and now being a 6th-round pick is wild.
Yeah, I think the rise made sense on the positive camp reports up until he's gotten into this tier. And I just can't personally draft him ahead of these Jaylen Warren, Rico Dowdle, Tony Pollard. And especially when you're considering in best ball tournaments, you're competing against people who were taking him multiple rounds later on throughout the summer. So I think it's fine. You can tell yourself the upside. I'm just not as confident that he still will be the 1st-round prospect that he was drafted as 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, whenever it was. He's not a player I love at his current price. I think if you were taking him in the hundreds and the 90s and the even 80s, well done. That was a great pick.
Yeah, I'm back in January and February. I mean, I was getting him in the 15th round, 16th round, which is fantastic, right? And to see the rise of him has just been crazy. By the way, FFPC Baby Gorilla ADP, he's basically at the same spot, 605, running back 27, right ahead of Warren, right ahead of Stevenson, right behind Price and Trevion Henderson. The Baby Gorilla is something that we introduced this year. It's the inaugural year for those of you who always wanted to play high-stakes fantasy football, wanted to be submitting blind bids and setting your lineup every week, but the cost was too prohibitive or whatever. This is only $125 to get into the Baby Gorilla, and it's a $100,000 grand prize. We have live drafts and slow drafts going on for that right now. MyFFPC.com is your home for the FFPC Baby Gorilla. We see Josh Downs go off the board here to Jimmy John. That was the 805. We talked about the Colts earlier, but the pick right next to him, J.K. Dobbins. And I know you have written a lot about the Broncos running backs in FFN60.com. And I'm curious to find out what you think right now of Dobbins in the 8th round and sort of the best way to handle this Broncos backfield. That I'll before you answer, I saw the Jonah Coleman thing where he was on the field hardly at all. Sean Payton saying something to the effect, "I saw what I needed to see out of him." And I wonder if this is oh my God, this is really going to be a 3-pronged approach here this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny too, because we think of Sean Payton and, back to the Saints days of these running backs are going to be really valuable. But then we saw the last 2 years where it was just like, I don't know. So just, we didn't know who was getting it. Even throughout the season, it was mixing around. Even when you got the volume, it just wasn't a good enough offense or higher scoring enough. They were so pass heavy last year. I do believe like J.K. Dobbins is what they want this offense to be, but they also know like he just can't stay healthy. I'm still playing RJ Harvey more, and he has his role. He's not quite the Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, Rico, Jaden Blue like type mold, but they're still kind of pigeonholing hole into this offense, I believe. If J.K. Dobbins gets hurt, I think that's where Jonah Coleman becomes that 1A and can be, a great pick there. At cost, I think they're all fine right now. I think the market's probably properly evaluating it. And I'm taking a look at my pick right now.
Justin Herzig on the clock at the 8:10. This is right after Team 4, Manuel Afif Chabot, gets his Chiefs stack, and he gets Kelsey in the 7:04. He gets Mahomes in the 8:09 here, and now it is on Justin to make a pick. Stacking up receivers and running backs through the first 5 rounds, adding a tight end and a quarterback with Pitts and Hurts the last couple of picks. Take us through your thought process here with 35 seconds on the clock, Justin.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go with the Dallas Goedert. It makes too much sense. It's the Jalen Hurts stack. It's what I was kind of building for. I can maybe get a little greedy and take another player first, but with Team 1 not having a tight end, I'm not sure that Goedert falls back. And there's a teardrop at the tight end after Goedert too. So I'm going to take the Goedert, not going to get greedy, and just hope that the other player that I'm looking at comes back to me.
803 is his normal ADP over the last couple of days in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. So, Justin, both of your tight ends, you're getting a little bit more than a half round of ADP value on. And now you get the stack, too, with Hurts and Goddard. You'll have to – we'll find out what Masterson and Wonky are going to do here at the with teams 1 and 2, and then you'll be back on the clock. I'd love to hear who else you are considering. Maybe you'll even get that player back to you at the 9:03 as we're fast approaching the halfway point of the draft tonight. Masterson ends up going quarterback with his last 2 picks. He gets Burrow at the 7:02. He does end up going with Jackson Dart at the 8:11 to pair with his Malik Neighbors. And then we see a pair of receivers going to Bill Wonky here. Bill Wonky now 5 deep at wide receiver after adding DK Metcalf and Jaden Reed, and it is back to Masterson here at the 9:02, 1 pick away from Justin Herzig. Justin, is the player that you were considering at the 8:10 still available?
He is not, and it was either DK Metcalf or Jaden Reed. And it makes sense because if you look at the wide receivers, those 2, and then who's available after, those are definitely, especially DK Metcalf, I put a tier above. But I'm still content in the decision because I'm confident Dallas Goedert would not have made it back to me, and it makes sense with Jalen Hurts.
The pick is about to be in. He's got 15 seconds. Nope, it is Quentin Johnston as the pick at the 9:02, putting Justin Herzig back on the clock. Justin, I'll let you talk through this here.
Yeah. If I look at, so we got a lot of QBs, but none of them are stacking for me. And I've got the Hurts, so I'm okay with passing there. Running back, Chuba and JCM, Rashad White are the guys I'd be looking at. Wide receiver, as I mentioned, like that drops off. So I'm going to go with running back. That's my position that I'm a little weak on. Let's think. Breece Jacobs. Jacobs back at practice. I don't have to worry about the injury too much. Breece could linger a little. I'm going to go with Chuba Hubbard. I still think that, like, even though, we as fantasy might consider him a Jag, like just another guy in that offense, he's a captain of that team. I don't know if actually still is this year, but recently he was the captain of that team. I think he's a guy that the coaches just absolutely love. They have trust in him. And even if like Jonathan Brooks does have, I don't know, like has that great year, I don't expect Chuba Hubbard just to disappear. And so I think early in the year, we're still going to see like a lot of Chuba Hubbard. And I think the floor is more of like a 1A, 1B situation. And there's still a lot of avenues that is still actually as Chuba's backfield. I mean, when you consider Jonathan Brooks, as you said, hasn't played a snap in 2 years.
It's rare to see Jonathan Brooks on the field. And it's also rare to see him outside of the 6th round right now, which to me, those things don't compute. But I get why people are doing it. The Hubbard thing I think is interesting with seemingly everybody so down on him right now, but we could be looking week 3 and saying, oh my God, why did we let Hubbard slip this far? Why were we such believers in Brooks? That's entirely possible as well. We see Krosky Miracle off the board at the 9:06 tonight. I want to go back to the 8:06 if we could here and talk about Chris Godwin. That was the choice for Namaker and Saro, who are on the clock right now here in the 9th. We talked about the Egbuka injury. I guess we can incorporate that storyline into talking about Godwin. But I just remember what a great season he was having prior to that nasty ankle injury on Thursday Night Football. And I still see visions of that dancing in my head of how good he was that year. I was on him. I was so excited to have him on my squad. What's the likelihood that he gets back to even 80 or 85% of that level where, that would turn an investment or be a good return on investment here as wide receiver 35, Justin?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was actually at that game versus the Ravens, and Bucks were out of the game. They were down by 2 touchdowns. Chris Godwin should have never been on the field. I think it was probably with only a few minutes remaining in the game. We left. We're walking out of the stadium. So walking out, you still have the big screen or whatever, and we just hear a ooh come across the crowd, and then one person's watching their phone. We see the replay, and gosh, that was miserable. Because I think it was Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were both top 3 wide receivers in fantasy points at that point. It was an amazing season going. And then last year, Godwin comes back and he's just not himself. You look at the stats, you look at the metrics, and it gives you pause for concern. Mm-hmm. The bullish standpoint, though, is you're another year removed from the injury, which we've seen as a strong positive when you're looking at kind of comps. But also the role of, if he can play just in that slot, which is what they want, you can put Jalen McMillan on the outside. You can even bring in some Ted Hurst there too, but just keep Godwin in the slot. And maybe he's not as impactful as a wide receiver to the Bucks, but from a fantasy angle, he could still be just Godwin's he can still be Baker's number 1 just from a volume target.
The selection at the 9-12. We talked about Jalen Waddle earlier. Cortland Sutton has been tumbling in drafts, obviously approaching the wrong side of 30. It seems like he has been usurped as the number 1 option in that passing offense. You mentioned your misgivings with Bo Nix and sort of a passing regression, negative regression coming for that offense this year. How much value do you still see in Cortland Sutton here as the final pick of the 9th round?
I think he's becoming a fine pick as he keeps dropping. Vegas is a little more bullish on him than we are from a fantasy perspective. If you look at his touchdown total, I think he's still at around 6.5 on the year. And if you're just, purely projecting off of previous years and, being reasonable about the Jalen Waddle target concentration he'll get, Cortland Sutton should still be a pretty fine pick. Now, the risk is what if Chris Bryant actually becomes the number 2 wide receiver there? And Chris Bryant had a great rookie year, and there's definitely a story you can tell yourself that he elevates that position. I think we as drafters are probably just a little overscared on that and thinking, well, Cortland Sutton doesn't have that much upside. I mean, we know who he is. And now you're telling me there's actually some risk that this sophomore, usurps him. Okay, I can see why he's falling. But in my opinion, if you look at the wide receivers that are going after him, he's still a tier above and makes sense to, at cost.
Tyler Shough is having a preseason, I don't want to say to forget, but it's not like we're hearing glowing reports about how great he has been so far. Now it's training camp, whatever. He loses Jordan Tyson now for the next 2 months. That's going to be significant. And I think it was Silva again. God, this is just turning into the Evan Silva hour. He was talking about the schedule, the division, the fact that Kellen Moore is the OC and they just love to run a ton of plays. They play fast. There could be some shootout potential with New Orleans. I feel like every time I see somebody take Shough, I'm like, God, I probably should have I probably should be drafting more of him. How do you feel about him and that Saints offense, also incorporating the Tyson injury into the conversation now, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, most of the summer I've been pretty bullish on the Saints. The Kellen Moore, the indoor, the Tyler Shuck year 2, the adding of weapons, but also like the fragility of these offenses now kind of concerning me. Kamara down and probably going to miss some time. The Tyson one, like, so what? Saints, their bye is in week 8 and week 7 is in Paris. And week 9 is on MetLife Stadium Field, which is one of the worst places for injury. Like, so when does he come back? Like, I'm a little more concerned with the fragility of this. Now, Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson, I'd say give me more of them than going after like Tyler Shuck to get pieces of this offense.
I was in a draft today and I think I was blinded. Well, I wouldn't say I was blinded with that, but I just got, it was the end of the second round and I ended up going with, I picked Olave over Bowers. This is non-tight end premium, Justin. I picked Olave over Bowers. I picked him over London as well, which I might regret, but I think that Saints offense is going to be ready to explode this year. You are on the clock, my friend, for your pick in the 10th round. I beg your pardon. This is the 10-10. You addressed running back for the first time in since the 4th round, getting Chuba Hubbard. Let's talk about what you're going to be doing here with 3 receivers, 3 running backs, a pair of tight ends, and a quarterback on your roster.
Yeah. So one of the things that you probably have noticed from when I keep talking is I think in tiers, and that's tiers with an I, not an A. And for me, if I can find a player that like I need to grab this if I'm looking at this position before that tier drop goes, and for me that right now is Jordan Love. He stacks with the Josh Jacobs, so I'm getting a little correlation there. But after Jordan Love, you're looking at Sam Darnold, Malik Willis, CJ Stroud, Daniel Jones. Like, that's a big teardrop in my mind for a position that I need and gives me some correlation. There were some other players there that I kind of liked that I was considering, but that it's kind of similar to the Goddard one. It fits.
There is there's at least one backstack option for you with Jordan Love as well, based on who's still out there on the board. So Love and Jalen Hurts. Love Hurts, the quarterback situation for Justin Herzig here tonight from the 3 spot as we wait to see what Peter Masterson does. So you've addressed quarterback in this format. You have 2 tight ends. You have 2 quarterbacks. I think you're likely to add a 3rd tight end here. How likely are you to add a 3rd quarterback, though, Justin, based on how the first half of your draft has played out?
If I end up with just Jalen and Jordan Love, I'm okay with that. If I end up finding a strong value in someone or a late stack option, I'm okay with that. If I end this draft, my 20th round being like Tua or Penix, then I'm probably okay with that as well. So this gives me that optionality, that flexibility that you talked about earlier that I like.
Yeah, it's a little freeing, right? You don't have that nagging at you like, oh, I really got to add another quarterback. You don't have to worry about that right now, or for the remainder of the draft. And you can go to battle with just both Hurts and Love. Once again, no kickers, no defenses in this format. It is best ball and $400,000 up for grabs. I should also mention, too, that while these are redraft leagues that we are covering here, we streamed an FFPC Dynasty startup, a live one, but live ones are going on right now still. Slow drafts are starting to wind down. Sent out an email to our Dynasty players today. 6-hour clocks are winding down. The Dynasty startups and the Empire Dynasty startups available at $100, going all the way up to $5,000. Check them out now, myffpc.com. 2,200 Dynasty leagues over the course of the 10-plus years that we've been doing Dynasty, and none have ever folded. So once you are in a league, you are in that league for good until you want to leave it, if ever. myffpc.com, your home for high stakes Dynasty fantasy football, and low stakes as well. $100 gets you to play fantasy football year round. It's a great thing. What also is a great thing is we are now having Justin Herzig back on the clock for his 11:03 pick right now. After you picked Love, we saw Pittman, Juwan Johnson, Willis, and Strange off the board. Again, a lot of different ways you can go with this pick here.
Yep, and same thing. Another one, last guy of a tier. I'm going to go Kyle Manungai. From a rank standpoint, my next player is 13 away, and from an ADP, the next is still at least around. So I'll take Kyle, and it also continues with that Bears with the Luther Burden, just to keep that kind of team correlation.
Yeah, if the Bears are scoring points this year, you'd like to think that Monangai and Burden are going to be significant cogs in that, and you have both of those players on your team. So it's shaping up well. Justin, I know you never know how a draft is going to go, but when you consider what this team looks like just over halfway through, how do you feel about it as it stands at the moment?
I'm pretty happy with the result of some falling value that correlates with the positions and kind of the teams that I'm building. That Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow was the first kind of dagger, because I think if that Burrow would have fallen, we were talking like really strong start. But being able to kind of make it work with that Dallas Goedert, I feel pretty strong there. Running back like Josh Jacobs falling to that 4.10.
Yep.
Very happy with that. We, as a position that I needed. The first three are probably honestly my least favorite picks because I just feel like I had to take what was just there. And there wasn't like if Derrick Henry would have fallen to me, I would have been pretty excited about that. If either of Bijan or Gibbs would have fallen, I would have been pretty excited about that. But so you start with what you got. And then I like the way that I've kind of been able to, plug the pieces in.
We are halfway through the 11th round here. And one of the things I noticed is we have a pair of Jacksonville pass catchers going off the board here with Brenton Strange at the 11:02 to Peter Masterson. The 11:04 was Jacoby Myers. That was Manuel Afif-Chabot grabbing him there. I have been trying to draft a bunch of Jaguars pass catchers over the course of drafting season, Justin, and it seems like a lot of other people are trying to do the same. However, separating themselves from the Travis Hunters, the Jacoby Myers, and the Brenton Stranges of the world have been Brian Thomas and Parker Washington. And tonight, that was no different. We see Parker Washington go all the way up at the 604. Adam Hahn took him there. And we see Brian Thomas. I did see 707 tonight to Saro Anamaker, the defending FFPC main event champs. It seems like people are really starting to favor Washington and Thomas. Is that the way that you're seeing the Jaguars this year? Or are you happy to buy the dip to still continue to get other pieces, cheaper pieces of this Jaguars passing game?
Yeah, so I think the steam on Parker Washington is legitimate. I do think he's going to be their number one receiver. It's just such a weird anomaly situation when a player like that kind of comes out of nowhere competing against first-round talent at the spot, and he just fits into what Liam Cohen wants to do with that offense, and he does it well. And so I think we do need to treat him as that number one. Now, it's the number one in a strong, high-powered passing offense, but it's also not a concentrated offense. So I think we need to at least consider that when we're talking projected. I still like Christian Watson personally better than Parker Washington because I think Packers a little more of a concentration. Parker Washington will have some huge games, but you have enough weapons otherwise that I think gets mixed around. For me, with Brian Thomas Jr., I get the argument for, and the upside case here, especially what we saw out of college, what we saw that rookie year. But I personally think he's just going to be a better football player for the team than for fantasy. I think the way that Liam Cohen wants to use him is as a field stretcher. And so that's going to be very helpful for their team and opening up space for the rest of the players. But, how valuable is that from fantasy? He'll have some spike weeks, which is great for this best ball format, but I don't think he's going to get you the volume that makes that. I think the gap should be larger between the BTJ and the Parker Washington. The other piece that I actually do like a bit more is the Jacoby Myers. And so if you look at, when this team brought Jacoby Myers in the trade, how they used him, I think he's and even there were quotes in the past couple of days about, I don't want to say this in a defamatory manner, but he's reliable. He's reliable. And so that's the kind of wide receiver. He was trying to say it as a compliment. And I do believe he will be on the field. I think he's probably going to be number 2 on that team behind Parker Washington in targets. Yes, he doesn't have as good of a yak. Yes, it's not as downfield. But I still think where he's going in drafts, he's a solid pick.
I meant to bring this up to you earlier, Justin, and thank goodness that we're getting the opportunity, thanks to Strider Robbins in the 5-hole tonight, taking Keaton Mitchell, that we can go back and look at this Hampton pick. Walker and Hampton go back-to-back in the second round tonight. And it's funny because Walker is ascending and Hampton is falling. Although I will say that I think Walker went a little bit later than when he normally goes tonight, and Hampton went a little bit earlier than what he normally goes to lately in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. Where do you stand on Mike McDaniel's comments about how he plans to deploy these guys? The fact that the Chargers are having offensive line issues, although I think Slater is supposed to come back by the weekend, but I know they had an interior problem, I think at center, where he got hurt or something to that effect. But it seems like Hampton, as far as like the top 2 rounds, if you were to ask me who the big slider was over the last week, it's been Omari and Hampton.
Yeah, and I mean, you probably saw from FFN 60, I think a week or two ago, I mentioned Omari and Hampton, I only have 1% of. And on some sites, that probably rounds actually down to 0%. For me, the risk has just not been worth, compared to these other running backs. And for me, it's okay. When we saw what he was able to do out of the gate in those first 4, I think it was 4 or 5 games before he got hurt last year, he put up great fantasy production, but a lot of that was because of the volume and specifically in the pass catching role. Like, was he a great running back from an efficiency standpoint? It was okay. It was good. But like as a prospect in the first round, he wasn't otherworldly. And so I personally don't think that Omarion Hampton has the skill set and efficiency to really thrive and make up for his early mid-second value based on his efficiency. So he needs that volume. But will he get that volume? Well, for me, I look at, okay, we've got the one, and we've got the Keaton Mitchell coming in. We've got the Keaton Mitchell skill set and maybe playing that Devon Achane type role from Mike McDaniel. We then have Kamani Vidal, who was basically treated like a workhorse when Hampton was down. And then you even have in the playoffs, you saw more of the Vidal. So like, I don't think this is a player they're just going to completely push to the side. So when Mike McDaniel has been giving this confirmation, which first off, offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniel, what are you doing taking these press conferences and giving these kind of quotes? Like, you're not the head coach anymore. Come on, like take a back seat. But okay, we'll take it. That is just gives me further validation of like where my overarching thoughts were on the Hampton spot. Could it blow up in my face? Yeah, I think with Mike McDaniel, what we saw with Mostert and Achane in 2023, whenever that was, with the Jeff Wilson year, I completely get it. But for me to take him, I have to be taking him over these other running backs that also have amazing bull case scenarios and don't have as much of like. Look at Derrick Henry's competition he's going against in that backfield compared to what Omarion Hampton.
Hampton is definitely polarizing. I was thankful that the draft, one of the slow drafts I'm in, that was taken out of my hands, and I didn't have to worry about taking him in the second round because somebody else snaked him before me, which I was fine with. So that's the Hampton, Mitchell, Vidal conversation. What I want to do now, Justin, is just take our final break. When we come back, you should be pretty close to being on the clock, making your 12th and 13th round picks as we continue live FFPC best ball coverage. Justin Herzig from Establish the Run, Predict Q, and of course, FFN60.com drafting for this $400K grand prize. Does he have what it takes? Is this team going to be the one that takes it down? You can find out how it all wraps up right after this. You're watching FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network.
Drafting a main event team on FFPC $2,000 entry team. Grand prize of $1 million.
I'm looking for that $1 million top prize.
Main event season is in full swing.
And it is time for more FFPC Best Ball Tournament action. Justin Herzig from Establish the Run on the clock right now. Justin, tell us what you're thinking with this pick.
There's no one that just I love at this spot. So I'm going to play in just a little variance, wide range of outcomes. Maybe the McCaffrey injury should scare us a little more. Maybe we've been hearing Debo has been getting, more running back touches. There's just so much fragility in this offense with now that Pearsall is gone, with Doug Stribling able to play kind of that rookie elevation role as Mike Evans with his injury history, the CMC, George Kittle coming off. Like, it's probably just going to be a whatever pick with Debo, but there could be some few games just because of the injuries that are playing out that they're like, okay, we need Debo to do everything. And so I'm going to lean into that.
Where do you stand in on Substation Gate? Are you a believer?
From what I've been able to look into it, it's not enough to really make a difference, but it's not something I'm going to argue with someone on because I'm not nearly informed enough. And honestly, the people who feel very strongly one way or the other, I'm just like, you're right.
You don't change, the way that you handle drafts based on that, like that doesn't apply into your thinking, right?
No.
Okay. Which makes sense. What kind of a year, you mentioned Samuel, this is definitely a different role for him this year. Does he have value, even if Evans and Stribling, and I don't know about Kirk anymore, but Evans and Stribling, if they're both healthy, is this a guy that still is going to have a role on that team, a significant one?
Role, yes. Significant one, I don't know. They were very quick to sign him after that Pearsall, so he was obviously some level of a priority. He plays a very different position than Mike Evans, and kind of what I know about Stribling, though. I guess we'll have to see how they want to end up using Stribling because there's talk about using him all over the field. For me, the biggest thing about Debo is just he's obviously not as quick. He's not as he's not as spry as he used to be. And so that Debo Samuel of let's give him touches and he can, you never know if he's just going to break one. I think that's probably pretty gone, but could you use him a little more in the red zone? Maybe he sneaks in a couple, one or two rushing touchdowns. We'll see.
We will see what you're going to do here. At the 1303, a lot of this is where you're building depth. This is where you're trying not to take zeros, but certainly still some difference makers out here at this point, Justin. You have in the receiver room, Chase, London, Burden, and Samuel. The running backs are Hall, Jacobs, Hubbard, and Monangai. You already have Pitts and Goddard and Hurts and Love. I don't know. I'm guessing receiver here, but I don't know.
Yeah, even though, I started strong with those early picks, but then really took a long time away from the wide receiver position. I think this is a good time to get a double tap with that Debo. Between Coker and Dobbs, Coker kind of fits into a research article I did around the loudness tax. Carolina is one of the quietest camps, so we just haven't been hearing many reports. But Jalen Coker, he had a strong role, strong kind of finish to last season. Who was the injury? You've got Brazel was the rookie injury, which kind of just clears out the runway even more for Jalen Coker. I'm not expecting Leggett to cause any kind of challenge. So it's more of, do you trust this offense? Like, can Bryce Young actually support 1-2 wide receivers? I'm not concerned about the tight end position stealing touches. So it could be tightly concentrated. I just don't have that much faith in Bryce Young. But, if he falls back to me in the 14th, it also could be a third stack that I go with. So
Coker and McMillan, I think both were pretty good with, while Young isn't the greatest fantasy quarterback, far from it. But I think he's been able to, obviously McMillan had a great rookie year. And then Coker, when he's been out there too, has been a guy that's been pretty successful with Bryce Young too. So I like the pick there as the 53rd wide receiver off the board. The pick right before you was Woody Marks at the 1302. And we did see earlier David Montgomery going off the board at the 501 to Bill Wonky. Just kind of curious as your thoughts on, we heard, I think it was Jane Slater from ESPN or NFL Network or whoever it was, talking about a split between those two. She kind of walked back those comments a little bit, but it still remains. What do you make of this running back situation in Houston now that we know that Jaden Higgins is going to be out for the year? Is this going to be more of a focus where Montgomery and Marks are both going to eat more because they will be passing less to the wideouts, and they're going to try to focus? Everybody wants to focus on running the ball. And then the real bullets start flying out there and they realize they can't. Well, Houston's got the defense where they probably could. And I'm kind of curious as to what your thoughts are on Montgomery and Marks post Higgins torn ACL.
Yeah, the way that I read that comment was, if you have two kids and you tell like one kid, hey, split this cookie into two, that cookie's not being split 50-50. And so I think the comments were like, yeah, it's going to be split between Dave Montgomery and Woody Marks, but that doesn't mean it's 50-50. And so I think Dave Montgomery will be far more of the workhorse in that offense. Honestly, the best case scenario for Woody Marks is that they move him into the pass catching role. That's what he was at USC. That's where his skill set is. Last year, I feel like it was more out of desperation that he had to play that role with the, how much do they actually know at what point of the Joe Mixon situation that they couldn't bring in another back at the, in the offseason last year. But it seems like, okay, we've got Woody Marks as our running back. Let's do what we can. And he was one of the least efficient starting running backs last year. But the thing is, like, that's not what his skill set is. That's not what he was kind of, his strength in college. Now Dave Montgomery is an adequate pass catcher. He's probably a little worse than he was, when he's younger in his career. He's fine, but why not put Woody Marks in that role? CJ Stroud, not the most dump offs, but still is a bit more of a pocket presence. You can still work that running back into the game. That's where I think, if you're looking for Woody Marks, yeah, you still have contingency if Dave Montgomery goes down, but his upside from a contingency is not as high as the other running backs going around and from contingency. But his medium projection and actually having a role in that offense, I think is a fine pick at where he goes.
It wasn't one in the last couple of days, but I figure if I remember correctly, in the FFN60 semi-recently, you wrote about Rashid Shaheed, who is in his first full year in Seattle, but year 2 overall after he was a trade deadline acquisition. They end up re-signing him to a significant deal. He goes off the board tonight to Jimmy John at the 1308. It is wide receiver 56. How do you think that Shaheed is going to do in fantasy in year 2 after a lot of us were kind of miffed and disappointed at his lack of usage in Seattle in 2025?
Yeah, going into the offseason, I was not very bullish on Shaheed. We saw when the games mattered, Shaheed was very rarely used. Even when he has like a 53-yard reception or whatever it was, it didn't matter. They just weren't using him as a regular player. Then the offseason happens. The contract gives you some bullish aspect. Okay, so they're making an investment. For me, the big turning point or the most confirmation I've gotten is Torrey Horton looks to be kind of subbing more with Cooper Kupp. And the way that I saw the offense was, we know JSN's doing what JSN is going to do. Torrey Horton and Shaheed play a similar style of football. And so my concern was Torrey Horton looked pretty strong rookie year before the injury. When he's coming back, isn't he just going to eat into Shaheed and now they're going to be splitting? But if it is true that hey, they want their 2 wide receiver core set to be Shaheed and JSN. Shaheed, yes, going to be a field stretcher, play on the outside, but still kind of have a higher snap share. And then Cooper Kupp plays slot, but you mix Torrey Horton there as well. That now gives me a little more confidence in the Shaheed pick.
Yeah, and it would too. It does me too. He goes back to back after Shaheed goes. AJ Barner is the choice for Adam Hahn there to get him on board as his number 3 tight end, going with McBride, Andrews, and Barner. Speaking of number 3 tight ends, Kenyon Sadiq off the board at the 13-12 tonight for Dave Thompson's squad. That is Circus Dave 2, drafting Sadiq at the 13-12. We have not heard a whole lot about Sadiq because of the injury. And I am always nervous about, by and large, I think the rookie tight end thing has been proven that it's not an absolute infallibility like Like, we have seen rookie tight ends go off basically since the days of Sam Laporta. Every year it's happened. And so that doesn't worry me as much as the injury and all this time that Sadiq is missing. They are looking for a number 2 pass catcher on that team. Could it be A.D. Mitchell? It probably won't be Cooper anymore. Could be Breece Hall. It could be Kenyon Sadiq. And he is falling right now. Tight end premium, you can get this first-round rookie in the 13-14 turn right now. Justin, what do you make of the way that FFPC players are treating Kenyon Sadiq at the moment?
Yeah, I put a tweet out about this earlier today, and I think that the hate has gone too far for Kenyon Sadiq. His RAS score, like, he is freak level athlete, and he's a first round draft pick. If you look at the last 5 first round draft picks, all finished tight end 12 or better. Yes, he's hurt. That's not good. Yes, he's on the Jets with a bad coaching staff, bad, not great QB. Like, yeah, that's not good. But this is still best ball. He's still, like, all that is baked into his price. All that needs to happen is, like, if he can surpass Mason Taylor, if he can kind of become some part of this offense, he has the explosiveness to really score as in, like, from a fantasy standpoint, big plays at any point. I just think any risk that there is for him, it's already baked in. All the other tight ends going around him are kind of have dust risk aspects to them as well.
Kenyon Sadiq, the first tight end off the board in the NFL draft this year, falling to the end of the 13th round tonight. And wow, how the mighty have fallen here. You look at Strider Robbins getting Jordan Tyson in the 14th round. Pretty incredible stuff here when you talk about, I know he's going to be missing time and what have you, but this is a player that not too long ago in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, going as high as the 8th round within the last 2 days. This is as far, I beg your pardon, he went in the 15th round yesterday, or maybe, yesterday he went in the 15th round. He is falling like a rock. Is there any value to be mined in a best ball format like this with Jordan Tyson, Justin?
I would have taken him with this pick if he still fell. This is just too cheap. Like, I like Jalen Coker better than him for, the risk aspect, and the Jalen Coker allowed me to get this Bryce Young as my 3rd stack, which I just grabbed now. But yeah, the 14th feels too cheap. 13th probably feels about right, somewhere around that, maybe 12th even. Honestly, if people took him in the 12th right now, I wouldn't hate it.
You end up going with Bryce Young here, getting that Carolina Panthers stack. Probably not going to be a whole lot of, I shouldn't say that. There might be some Coker Young stacks out there here, but tell us a little bit about why you did decide to pull the trigger on a 3rd quarterback here in round 14.
Yeah, just 20 roster, 20 slot teams. I'm happy with going something like a 3-6-8-3 type build. Again, it was all about that optionality. I'm fine with Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love, but also grabbing that 3rd stack helps for when you get to kind of the playoff aspects to this. And yeah, I think this is the right price on Bryce Young. I feel like I got a little bit of a value to, or at least didn't have to reach for him.
Bryce Young, quarterback 27 tonight, right after, and by the way, 5 quarterbacks go in this round: Brissett, Stroud, Ward, Justin takes Young, and then Aaron Rodgers, the final pick of the 14th round. Bill Wonky getting his Steelers stack here with Rodgers and Freiermuth, 14-12 and 15-01. It's interesting. Out of Bill's last 6 picks, they've all either been quarterbacks or tight ends, which is fascinating to me. Although he did load up on running backs and wide receivers early, but getting a lot of quarterbacks and tight ends here in the mid rounds. You are on deck. Do you have a player in mind, or maybe a couple of players, hopefully, in mind, Justin, that you're going to be taking here? Oh, now you're on the clock after Jaden Blue goes.
There we go. Yep. I wanted to grab my 3rd tight end, and we talked about Tampa. We talked about that offensive line. We talked about a healthy Baker. Cade Otton, known to have some spike weeks, known to become a bit more focal part of the offense when you get an injury or two. So I'm going to take Cade Otton.
Otton is the player here to go with the other tight ends that Justin Herzig has on his roster, Pitts and Goddard, and now he gets Otton. I'm a big fan of anybody playing on the Buccaneers this year, and certainly you're getting a little bit of value with Cade Otton. Going back to the 14th round, one of the things I noticed, we had a pair of Raiders wide receivers go off the board here. Trey Tucker to Dave Thompson at the 1401, and then Jalen Naylor, the pick before you took Bryce Young. Manuel Afif Chabot ends up taking Naylor as wide receiver 61. Do you have and like obviously Jack Besh is out there as well. Do you have a Raiders wide receiver that you have been drafting, or are you all about just Bowers, Genty, and then that's it for Raiders?
No, I'm good with Trey Tucker. I'm good with Jalen Naylor. I think I like Jalen Naylor a little better. And
because of the contract?
The contract, some good camp reports as well. I think he's a little more versatile of a wide receiver as well. Yes, that Trey Tucker has that one game. What was it? Week 1 of last year. Just crazy. But I think as in, where you're trying to fit into that offense, I just like Jalen Naylor a little better. It also is like if you miss out on QBs and you want to say like, hey, I need to get a back stack, Mendoza is going to be later on. So that's exactly what right there. Jalen Naylor Mendoza was the kind of, he needed he got Mahomes, he needed a second QB. So that gives you another stack.
Yeah, and certainly Afif Chabot taking advantage of that, not only getting a stack, but helping his roster out as well. Braylon Allen ended up going with the pick after Mendoza to Strider Robbins. And, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let you tell me how you like to treat this. You had Breece Hall. You could have had Braylon Allen there instead of Cade Otton. Where do you stand in a national tournament, like a big field tournament like this, Justin, when it comes to stat cuffing or handcuffing your own running backs versus drafting other people's injury away type guys?
Yeah, so we've done some research on this, and the really opportunity comes are when you're drafting in ambiguous backfields. And so in those ambiguous backfields, taking multiple backs ends up being a winning bet. And why is because, when you're taking multiple running backs from the same team, one is you're making a macro level bet on that team and specifically their running game, that it is a good running game. So their offensive line is good. They're able to actually create holes. And when they're doing that as an offensive line and as a team, then it's good for whatever running back is back there. 2 is if there's ambiguity, you're likely getting them at a decent price. You're not paying top dollar for these running backs. So it's easier for them to actually surpass value. And, when there's ambiguity, it might be that, hey, one hits in this week, one hits in this week, but just the fact that you're having either hit in a middle or round is pretty strong. And then the last part is if there actually is an injury in an ambiguous backfield, we already know now, like, hey, this team's already good. The team has the strong running. Now this person's getting more volume, so they're able to elevate and actually take on a larger workhorse. The best example of it was the 2023 Dolphins of Mike McDaniel, because during that offseason, you had, rookie Devon Achane. What do we do with him? You've got Raheem Mostert, aging running back. What do we do with him? Oh, you also had Jeff Wilson coming over from San Francisco. What do we do with him? No one really knew how to do, and that's why they were all being drafted in those kind of 10th round or later. Jeff Wilson gets hurt. Now it's concentrated to 2 backs. Also, the team was explosive. The rushing game was electric. Both players ended up just fitting so well for that offense, and they both ended up having advance rates of the 2 highest. I think it was the 2 highest running back advance rates for that season. The one corollary to all this is, as I mentioned, it works better in ambiguous backfields. When we don't want to be doing it is when you take Bijan, then taking Brian Robinson. If you're taking Gibbs, taking Pacheco, whoever. When you have these more of here's the clear number 1 and then the backup to it, the draft capital that you're spending at that high position, it just makes it so that it's not worth it. The last piece that I didn't reference is the uniqueness angle. Very few people, or at least before we did this research and published it, were drafting multiple from the same team in those ambiguous situations. Usually people would just say, I'm going to bet on one. So you're also getting a level of uniqueness as you get into the playoffs, and you can get some ping pong nature throughout.
So in your opinion, just to surmise that, and just make sure I'm understanding it correctly, if you invest in a running back early, probably not the greatest idea in getting the guy behind him. However, if you're drafting in a running back later on that is part of sort of a muddy backfield, ambiguous, whatever, then it not only is a good idea to draft one player, but maybe multiple players there.
Yeah, I think Broncos are a good example. I think Vikings are a great example. Take Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones, and you're saying that, yep, Kyler's able to actually, Kyler plus Kevin O'Connell are able to make this into a strong offense. They playing well. They can each have some solid games because maybe one's more of a rushing or maybe one's more receiving Aaron Jones. But also when Aaron Jones gets hurt or if Jordan Mason gets hurt, the other one elevates substantially.
Mm-hmm.
The other play here is if you have Gibbs, go draft Brian Robinson, because now you're also getting some correlation where if Brian Robinson is a great play because Bijan gets hurt, well, at the number 1 pick, number 2 Bijan was probably your biggest competition in the draft from similar build structures and just overall from a draft capital of getting the second best player in the draft. But now if you know he goes down, now not only did your biggest competition for team number 2 lose their best player, you also are elevating with getting the best running back from a handcuff standpoint. So it's just like a double win to really elevate you to the top of the leaderboard.
Justin, would that same logic apply for Bijan Robinson owners drafting Pacheco?
If you are bullish on Pacheco, yes. I think after this MCL injury, there's a little more cause for concern that Pacheco will have that workhorse, that role if Gibbs were to go down. But yeah, in theory, 100%. And you can do that all throughout the draft similar ways.
In round 15 tonight, we see two rookie risers at wide receiver. Cyrus Allen goes off the board tonight at the 15:07. That was to the FFPC main event champion, Rob Sorrow and Nick Nomaker. They take Cyrus Allen there. And then 2 picks later, another guy who's been making waves in Baltimore Ravens training camp is the rookie out of USC. Adam Hahn takes Jacoby Lane there. Out of those 2 rookies, are you more excited about one compared to the other one? Or, I don't even know how you feel about either one, quite frankly.
Okay. And that was Mike Washington, Emma Johnson?
No. This was... This was Jacoby
I was looking
Lane.
for my pick.
That's
I was
okay.
looking for my...
Well, actually, before we get into the Jacoby Lane, Cyrus Allen discussion,
that was it. Yeah,
you're on deck here, and I think let's not put the cart before the horse here. You have to figure out what you're doing here. I think it's interesting what you've done. You already have the 3 tight ends. You already have the 3 quarterbacks. You can have the opportunity to, what do we have left? 5 picks for you. So you have the opportunity to build up that wide receiver room, even though you went Chase London to kick things off. Certainly you could go with some more yellow there. And then honestly, the running back position too. Did not take a running back until round 3. I think you only have 4 right now. Yeah, 4 running backs. It's Monangai, it's Hubbard, and then it's obviously Hall and Jacobs are the 2 guys you took early on. You are on the clock right now. What are we doing here at the 16:10?
Yeah, the running backs are just so ugly at this point in drafts that it's basically a wash, like which one you're taking. So I'm definitely going to need to grab more running backs. How many wide receivers do I have? So you have
5.
5, and I have 5 picks left.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably going to go 7 and 7. And I think if I grab the wide receiver here, there's still like the wide receivers available now are still a bit better than the ones that would be later, where the running backs, it's just so flat. You're just hoping you hit on the right ones. I think I'm going to at least start with a wide receiver here. There's one running back that I'm curious if it makes sense for me to take. All right. I think I'm leaning towards at least taking this one run. I'm going to take Justice Hill.
Justice Hill. All right.
Yeah, doesn't really bring too much upside, but for a team that I'm going to go 7 running backs, and I didn't invest that much capital early on, just someone being on the field, especially early, is going to be helpful. And I still, my next 2 running backs that I grab are going to be pure like handcuff upside guys. So it's good to at least have a 5th running back that will be active on, game days.
What do you make if the impossible happens and Henry goes down? Does Adam Randall fit into that backfield at all, or is this Justice Hills?
Adam Randall's a converted wide receiver, right? All reports are that he's going to need time to actually, play competently at the running back position. I've never considered that when Henry goes down, Justice Hill takes over the heavy volume. I think most likely scenarios they would sign or bring someone else in, but Justice Hill would definitely get a strong uptick in his usage at least.
The pick was Justice Hill and for Justin Herzig. Right after that was Travis Hunter. How do you fall in on drafting Travis Hunter in best ball leagues this year, as reports from camp saying that his offensive snaps are dwindling down and his defensive snaps are rising?
It just makes too much sense. They have a very strong wide receiver room, and they also have they have clarity, or at least we're feeling that there's clarity in what they want that wide receiver room to look like, with the Parker Washington being the alpha, the BTJ being the field stretcher, the Jacoby Myers being the reliable underneath. Like, that just makes sense. And then you look at their defense, and it's the cornerback situation is just horrible. So why not just have him be your number one cornerback and then have positions for him? I mean, but at this price, I think it's still fine. Yeah, I'm blanking on a word. I'm trying to think. Packages, not positions, packages. You could still have packages for Travis Hunter. And at this price, that probably is still fine. But when he was going, earlier in the offseason, 2 rounds ahead of this, a little pricey.
The Hunter thing I think is interesting, because there are some people that have totally eliminated him off their boards, and I do think there is still value when it comes to these later rounds, especially best ball formats, that you can add Hunter onto your squad just to see what happens. Because the thing is, with managed leagues, you'll never know when to start him, but in best ball, that doesn't matter, and that's why it makes him more of a valuable asset here. You're on deck. I think you said you were thinking 7 and 7 for running backs and receivers. Certainly could build that up here with seemingly your quarterbacks and tight ends taken care of. Justin Herzig, you are on the clock for your 1703 pick. Tell the viewers what is going through your head.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't considering, didn't need 2 anymore. I was not expecting him to get drafted, but there he goes. Okay. I could grab like a Dontavian Wicks for the Jalen Hurts stack. There's no one on Green Bay I want. There's no one on Carolina I want. I just don't end up with that much Dontavian Wicks, but maybe this should be a situation where I change that. I don't know. Like, there's other wide receivers that I think, that I like in a vacuum better. But, like, should my correlation be stronger? ADP, Dontavian Wicks makes sense. I'm just going to go with it. This is a way for me to, level off my bags. And, we didn't take Mekhi Lemon, so we take Dontavian Wicks. We have Goddard. Maybe Devontae Smith gets hurt, or Devontae Smith or Mekhi Lemon gets hurt, and Dontavian Wicks plays a larger part in the offense.
I know it's a different team. There's a lot of differences between Wicks on the Packers and Wicks on the Eagles, but his offensive coordinator did to go to Philadelphia with him, and we have seen several weeks over the course of multiple seasons in Green Bay, where Christian Watson was healthy, where Jaden Reed was healthy, where Romeo Doubs was healthy, where Tucker Kraft was healthy, and Wicks still went off for these spike weeks. So I think that there's something we can say, and he's positive camp reports coming out. Lemon, has had his issues with his hamstring and trying to stay on the field. I think there are a lot worse ways to spend a 17th round pick than on Dontavian Wicks. So I applaud you on that one as well. I should mention too, I know I talked about the FFPC Dynasty startups earlier. I do want to mention too that the 6-hour Dynasty Empire startup drafts are winding down right now. We'll still have a few 2-hour, still have a few 4-hour drafts. If you want to play fantasy football year round, check out FFPC Dynasty Empire drafts. What is the Empire? Half the prize pool is set aside each and every year. And if anybody who wins that league 2 years in a row, they will not only get that year's purse, but they will also get that cumulative Empire pot that has been rising over the course of however many years it takes for one team to win the league 2 years in a row. FFPC Empire Dynasty League started last year. They've been very popular, so we added more of them this year, and people keep signing up. You can sign up for one right now. Live Empire Dynasty Leagues going off right now at myffpc.com with 60-second timers. myffpc.com is where to go for Dynasty Empire startups. Kayshon Boutte goes off the board at the 1708. I did draft him late in a 28-round best ball format. Well, I should say late, but relatively late in that format. And I do say when it comes to this, Justin, AJ Brown, there are people who do not like his knees, and he could miss some time this year. I know they signed Romeo Doubs as well, but Boutte's been shining in preseason, and I wonder. I I know there's contingent upside there. I just wonder how much contingent upside there could be for Booty this year.
I mean, I think the contingency upside is not in New England. And I think that's the play that Team 8 was doing here with the CJ Stroud play. You lose the Jaden Higgins, and hey, who's in need of a wide receiver? Kayshon Boutte is right there. So I think that's where the mental mindset there was for them. And even if he doesn't go to Houston, there's still lots of outs for him, either with New England or going to Atlanta. I don't think not the Colts anymore, but like there's still a few other outs.
Kansas City is Kansas City a possibility or no?
I doubt it. They haven't had. I mean, barring a major injury or something. Yeah.
The 18th round is well underway, and you mentioned the Higgins injury. Well, we see Dave Thompson at the 12 spot tonight drafting Tank Dell. And I know we have, I don't think he's been on the field yet. I know he's recovering, but this is another guy too of the Jonathan Brooks genre, where this guy has not played meaningful football in a couple of years, but now he's got the opportunity, right? With the Higgins injury. What's the upside with what's the bowl scenario for Tank Dell in your opinion this year?
I mean, the bowl scenario is that he was an amazing rookie and they don't have a number 2 wide receiver. The challenge is the beat reporters aren't even sure if he's going to make the 53-man roster. And I think the kind of quotes were around, if he can't be healthy enough during the preseason to be established in the playbook, you're not going to get that level of, like that time, that incorporation to get into it once the season starts. And so if he's not able to very quickly ramp up in the next, when's 53-man cuts, like not long. I think like that's where the, local beat reporters were more bearish on Tank than I'd like to be. I was drafting Tank earlier, but I've definitely cooled off just kind of hearing the reports out of camp.
So if you've cooled off on Dell and Higgins is out for the year, where are those targets going to? I know we talked about the Montgomery Marks aspect before. Is it Schultz? Is it Noel, Jalen Noel, or is it somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to think it's Jalen Noel, but for whatever reason, even among injuries, like they just do not want to give him playing time. I think as a player, and if you look at his kind of, per play efficiency metrics, like they're pretty solid, but they just don't have any desire to give him a larger role. Maybe that'll change. We'll see. I think Dalton Schultz is the easy answer. And then also just gives the more runway for Nico.
Yeah. And Nico Collins has obviously been rising up FFPC best ball boards. And not only FFPC, but I mean, like Big Gorilla, main event, everything. Collins has been shooting up. Not that he had much room to rise, but there are a whole lot of people out there drafting him with much more confidence than they were when Higgins was still healthy. Speaking of torn ACLs, what do you think Chris Bell has on the tank coming off his torn ACL from Louisville last year? And now he is he's in the red jersey, but he's out there right now for Miami, Justin.
I mean, I'm shocked. Like my mental mindset was that he would maybe you see him at the, am I up?
Yeah, you're up. I'm sorry. I shouldn't ask
no,
you that.
That's good.
Jordan James goes off the board. Actually, we see a former 49er and a current 49er, Jawan Jennings and Jordan James, the killer double J's. How did Jimmy John not take either one of those guys tonight? But you're on the clock right now with your 18-10 pick, fresh off your Dontavian Wicks selection.
Yeah, and that's where, as I mentioned, the 2 running backs that I'm going to end up with to finish this draft, for that to get me to 7, if I do end up with 7, are just pure handcuffs, and that's exactly what I think Seth McGowan is. DJ Giddens, looks like Seth McGowan was already kind of usurping him or passing him for that number 2. Then you get the Giddens injury. Now there's questions whether he even makes the 53-man roster. And Seth McGowan, yes, he is a late day 3 rookie pick this year, but he's not your traditional late round rookie. And why? Well, in college, he's played. He had 5 years college, and 2 of those years he was not in D1 because he had off the field issues. Mm-hmm. And so when he came back. So when you think about when we're drafting him as an NFL team, you don't need to you devalue him a bit. So you draft him a bit later. And that makes sense. And then we think about from a prospect profile. Okay, he's an older rookie. We don't love that, so we devalue that as well. But if we're only thinking 1 year, and we're only thinking if Jonathan Taylor gets hurt, can Seth McGowan become the guy? I think the answer is yes. Or at least I'm a little more bullish on it than a normal 7th round pick. because he has a bit more of that experience. He's a little more game ready with that age, being the kind of veteran of, having all those years in school. So it's a little different profile that gives me a little more confidence.
And McGowan's one of those guys too, where you wonder if he didn't have the off-field stuff and he was, coming into the draft at age, 20 or 21, where would this guy have been picked? He is not, as you pointed out, he is not your everyday meat and potatoes 7th round pick. There's a lot of nuance to his game. There's some nuance to this pick here in the 19th round, your penultimate pick here tonight, Justin, after we see 4 straight receivers go: Branch, Antonio Williams, Jalen Noel, and then Isaac Tesla. Your thoughts here on what you're going to do in the 19th?
When you can get the number 2 wide receiver on a team that we like the offense in the 19th round, you just got to do it. And that's what I believe Devon Bailey is going to be for the first, 8-9 weeks as Tyson is out. I've been liking Devon Bailey even before this injury because one is, they made the trade for him. They showed that they, wanted him on their team when they did bring him on. And last year, he actually had a couple decent games last year to finish the season, had some volume. So I think they like what they see. Obviously, you bring in Tyson and Olave are just another tier level of wide receivers, but doesn't mean he can't see the field as number 3. And both Olave and Tyson, both are injury, riddled histories. All you need is one to disappear. And I think Devon Bailey takes that role. And so hearing from Nick Underhill, the reports at camp, it sounds like Devon Bailey will be the number 2 for the Saints as long as Tyson is out.
Was it Moore? I think it was Kellen Moore said that he wanted, and I think he might have said this before the Tyson announcement on the hamstring, that he was trying to get Vele involved more. And like you, I took Vele in a couple of best ball drafts within the last week, late after the Tyson injury. I think one of those is a managed league. One was a managed league, one was best ball. But I'm bullish on this. And people will say, "Oh, it's just Tyson's going to be back, in October or whatever it is." And yeah, he might. But you think about a rookie who's missing all this time. I just think I go back to the Mike Tomlin thing where he said it's hard to jump on a moving train. And that might be what Jordan Tyson's trying to do. Whereas Devon Vele has had the entire training camp, had the entire preseason, and he was there a little bit last year too. I feel like the bet should be on Vele rather than Tyson. And we're seeing Tyson go now 5 rounds ahead of Vele, where he wasn't even being drafted before Tyson was an 8th round pick. Things move quickly, pretty quickly around here, as Ferris Bueller once said. We see another Raiders receiver go off the board in the 19th round tonight, and that is Jack Besh. What do you make of the quarterback stacking going on with the defending main event champions from the 6 hole tonight? Sorrow and Namaker draft May, they draft Ward, and then they get Watson and Sanders. 2 Cleveland quarterbacks on the same team. I must be at the nexus of the universe. What do you make of that in best ball?
So one thing about this Cleveland team is I think it's going to be a bit different from a kind of overall team mentality than what we're used to. Like, we're used to the Browns being a very strong defense led by Myles Garrett. And then on offense, it's kind of more of a ground and pound, control the clock, try to just win those low scoring games. This defense is not the defense that we've been used to. So I think they're going to struggle from a defensive standpoint, which means they're going to have to sling it a bit more on offense. And it's one of the reasons why I'm lower on Quentin Judkins, because I don't think we're going to have many game scripts where the Browns are ahead and, using his skill sets. You see more Dylan Sampson. And I really there's so much upward trajectory youth on this team, from Harold Finion, Concepcion, Denzel Boston. Even Judy's only, I think, 26 years old. So if one of these QBs, I think the Browns, if they can find some level of competency at quarterback, could actually be not like a fun fantasy team, but not literally bottom 2 or 3, which is what we're expecting.
Yeah. The other thing that stood out to me, not only the Shadur Sanders pick that round, we saw a lot of tight ends go off in the 19th round here tonight. Jake Tonjes, Eric All from Cincinnati, Mason Taylor, Colby Parkinson. Are you on any of those guys, or maybe you have a favorite among those 4, Justin, between Tonjes, All, Taylor, and Parkinson?
I had Colby in the queue. For me, I'm very bullish on Terrence Ferguson with the possibility of being that number 3 wide receiver type role for the Rams. However, I've been of the opinion that if I'm drafting Matthew Stafford, I actually want to draft Terrence Ferguson and Colby Parkinson, because I think just because Ferguson can ascend in that number 3 wide receiver type role, Colby Parkinson still be your more traditional inline tight end and still have a strong season, especially where he's being picked. So I think as the Ferguson gets steamed, people are kind of leaving Parkinson back behind, thinking like, no, Ferguson's going to win this job. But that's not kind of the two, their skill sets or the way that they're going to be used in this offense.
Dave Thompson in the 12 spot is the first person with a completed roster tonight. I'm scratching my head on this pick. Maybe you can shed some light on it. He drafted Lamar Jackson in the 6th round. He drafted Jared Goff in the 10th, but then he goes ahead and adds Carson Beck in the 20th. I just feel like there's a better way to spend your 20th round pick. Obviously, Dave has a method to his madness there. What do you make of that Beck pick when you already have Goff and Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I think it is 20th round picks are so often zeros that if you just have something that you think can kind of help your lineup or tell some story, then you go for it. And for him, he probably wanted just a little more safety if he, this team does well and we get to the end of the season. I mean, the Cardinals schedule is so difficult. Their win total is only 4.5 games. I think Jacoby probably makes it to week 11 or 12, maybe 13 or so. But it wouldn't be shocked if they start off the season 2-6 and time to move in Carson Beck. And now you're getting a half a season and you're getting a half a season, the more valuable time for best ball. I don't think it's like a horrible strategy. I think anything you do in round 20,
right,
it's probably fine.
Joe Del Zanero, longtime FFPC player. I always say this, the Dow of Baker Boy. Baker Boy was his nickname, his username or whatever. He always said there's no such thing as a bad pick after the 10th round. And certainly I don't want to, and Dave Thompson, if you're watching, I don't want to criticize that 20th round pick. It's the 20th round. It's not going to make or break your draft. You had already a lot of positive comments on YouTube talking about your draft tonight from the 12 spot for sure. Carson Beck, certainly not a player you want to draft in FFPC Chop Leagues. However, FFPC Chop Leagues is something we started offering a couple of months ago. They've been filling up both live and slow drafts. Just don't be the lowest scoring team in your league in any given week and you win the league. It rewards mediocrity. The team that is the lowest scoring on any given week is eliminated, and their team goes into the free agent pool, and you can bid on those players. FFPC Chop Leagues can be registered for right now at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Those leagues start at $35. You can play for cash. You can play for big gorilla entries, free main event entries as well. myffpc.com is where to go for FFPC Chop Leagues. Well, we're almost there. You are on the clock, Justin, for your final pick, and lo and behold, Michael Penix does go off the board. Not saying you're going to add a fourth quarterback here, but now you don't have to worry about that, as Tagovailoa and Penix both go one pick before when you were going to pick in this draft. Who's it going to be here in the 20th round?
I mean, I'm just glad that I wasn't counting on one of those at the end, because that would have been quite the little tilt there. Okay, I am between Calvin Ridley, who in the 20th round, someone who's actually going to provide points that could just be helpful, or do I go James Conner? And here, making a bet that he would get traded to somewhere else and then finds a role. One's obviously higher upside, but I think I just go with the Calvin Ridley and say, you know what, I'm getting a starting wide receiver in the 20th round. If he can just provide me any level of points, it's maybe worthwhile.
And on an offense that is, somewhat up and coming, new offensive coordinator this year 2 of Cam Ward. Certainly they've added some weapons there. Maybe a rising tide raises all ships with Wan'Dale Robinson there now. You have no Chigakonko, but Gunnar Helm looks more than capable. And then, of course, the first round pick, Carnell Tate, who is also there as well. Well, we have come to the end of your draft. You said you felt pretty happy about it after 11 picks. Are you still feeling as good about it through 20 now, Justin?
I like it. I don't feel like, that late. It's not so much about finding values or something crazy like that. It's more of just, are you getting the guys you like? I feel like the middle of my draft was the strongest part. The beginning of it, I felt okay. The end of it, I felt kind of okay. But I think that middle really put it together. I'd give myself a solid B.
Solid B for this one as well. So good luck winning that 400 grand. Until we speak again, we will continue, and everybody should subscribe to ffin60.com. Justin Herzig's daily newsletter. It is fantastic. It's helped me out. It can help you out too. Don't forget about all his coverage for best ball content over at Establish the Run and Predict Q MKT on the X, your new baby, which we're looking very forward to seeing where that goes. Congratulations on all the success you've had. Good luck, not only in your fantasy leagues this year, but in all of your ventures outside of that as well. Justin, this is a treat as always. We will do this again, probably this time next year. It'd be great if we can make it happen. Thank you so much.
Love it. I appreciate it, Eric. Thanks for the invite. Always fun chatting. Chat, you were great as well. And rest of the draft mates, best of luck. Hopefully someone out of this group at least wins the 400K.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. Enjoy the rest of drafting season, dude. We'll see you.
Cheers.
That is Justin Herzig, the world famous, maybe best fantasy football player in the world, who just drafted an FFPC Best Ball Tournament tonight. $400,000 on the line, and you saw him draft from the 3 spot tonight here live on FFPC Insider Access. Want to remind everybody too, FFPC Player One is one of the rare things that we have at the FFPC where you don't have to wait for the league to fill up. Once you register your team, the draft starts right away. You are going up against 11 smart FFPC CPU players. You can play in a variety of landscapes. We have like a gangster one. We have a futuristic, like dystopian future one. We got a Wild West one. So check that out. I say this too. It's $10 for a draft. They go up from there. You can play for higher than $10. But there are so many people who thought that this was dumb. It was stupid. But I said, just give it a shot. And if you still think it's dumb or stupid, then you don't have to play it, whatever. And I know people who are dead set against, like, they didn't think they were going to like it and they love it. And they've been drafting dozens of drafts with Player One. So check that out. myffpc.com. They start off at $10 and they go up from there. That is going to complete our show tonight. I want to thank Justin Herzig for hopping aboard. We will be back at 7:00 p.m. next Thursday with Fantasy Alarms, Colby Conway, who's going to join us from 7 to 9 on FFPC Insider Access. I don't believe the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour Insider Access or the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. In fact, I'm sure of it. We have no more live draft coverage the remainder of the season. However, the FFPC YouTube channel still will. In fact, coming up on August 25th, which is, Tuesday night, Andrew Cooper from Fantasy Alarm is going to join the guys for live FFPC Big Gorilla draft coverage. That's going to be the 3 Goombas, Aiden LaCorey, Dave Tripoli, and Jake Venuti, along with Andrew Cooper on that. And we will have, I think, 2 more live draft streams after that. But for my shows, at least, we won't have any more draft coverage. This kind of wraps it up, and what a way to do it. I want to remind you for next week, so we'll have Andrew Cooper. No, beg your pardon. For this week, Friday night, 10 p.m., Griff Bushel, Pros vs. Joe's drafter and FFPC League champ. He is joining Farrell and I for extra reps at 10 p.m. tomorrow night on the FFPC YouTube channel. You're going to get Andrew Cooper live. I want to say, God, I think that's an 8 o'clock start on Tuesday. No, it's 9 p.m. So 8 my time, 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday night for that live Big Gorilla draft coverage. Wednesday night, it's our KFFSC preview episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. The defending KFFSC main event champion, Dan Flamholtz, will join us for that show as well. So, and then we'll have extra reps next Friday as well. I'll tell you who the guest is going to be on that shortly. But it's going to be another banner week of podcasts. We're in it. We're in the end game now. We got less than 3 weeks till the start of the season. We got the Raiders and Texans playing right now. Preseason week 2 is underway, which is the second to last week of preseason now. This is the time to be drafting. Get in there while you can. Take your shot and a couple of $1 million grand prizes with the FFPC. That is going to do it for Justin Herzig. I'm Eric Balkman. This has been FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. Enjoy your night, everybody, and we will talk with you again tomorrow night on Extra Reps.